Can I?
पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा उत्तर गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जाते तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल गायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
All of you can sit down. I request the dignitaries to please proceed for lamp lighting. I request all the HODs to please accompany them. I request all the HODs to please accompany them.
शिवाजी थोडं पाणी भरून देशील.
Yes. So please accompany the dignitaries to the dais, please. There is a short information for the students. Attendance sheet is being circulated. Please make sure that you're signing the sheets. Do not make a chaos out of it. It will be coming to you. Hi, may I have your ears, please? I extend a heartfelt welcome to the August gathering for the celebration of National Technology Day 2022. It is organized by National Academy of Sciences, India Mumbai Chapter, NASI-MC, in association with KC College of Engineering, Management Studies and Research. I welcome all the distinguished speakers of the day and my dear colleagues and students. It is high time that such an event took place to highlight the remarkable contribution in which technology makes remarkable contribution in so many ways. A glance to today's speaker session for the next few hours will reveal amazing diversity of these applications. I request our principal sir, Dr. Vilas Navre, to welcome our erudite speakers.
Thank you, Tina madam. Hello. Respected Honorable Chairperson, Dr. Harsh Khanna madam. Respected Honorable Chairperson, Dr. Harsh Khanna madam. Honorable Managing Director, Dr. Sai Kiran Khanna. Director Narang madam. Chief Operating Officer, Dr. Pooja madam. Chief guest of today's function, Professor A.K. Singh, who is Chairman NASI-MC. Professor Narendra Shah, Commission, Government of Maharashtra, Mumbai. Professor Sahana Murthy is Professor in Interdisciplinary Program in Educational Technology of IIT Bombay. Professor K.P. Mishra is Founder President Society of Radiation Research India and also former head of RBN HSD Bhabha Atomic Research Center Mumbai. Dr. H.S. Mishra, Molecular Biology Division BAR Mumbai. Professor Yas Mazumdar, Professor P.A. Hassan, Secretary NASI-MC, faculty members, dear student friends, a very warm good afternoon to you all. I, Principal Dr. Vilas Nitnavre, welcome you all in KC College of Engineering and Management Studies to celebrate Technology Day. We all have gathered here to celebrate Technology Day. We are all aware that why do we celebrate this Technology Day? On the same day, 1998, Government of India conducted nuclear bomb test successfully in Pokhran. So this test was supervised by the then Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji and Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. In order to commemorate the technological advancement of India, the Prime Minister of India, Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, declared that this day should be celebrated as a Technology Day every year. So since 1999, this day has been observed as a Technology Day. On the same day, it is said that Hansa-3 indigenous aircraft was also tested successfully. Missile Trishul was also tested successfully. That's why this day has been written by golden words in the history of India. Before sharing my thoughts, I convey my sincerest thanks to National Academy of Science for giving us an opportunity to celebrate this day in the campus of KC College of Engineering. I request my dear student friends and faculty members to give big round of applause to National Science Academy. We have truly amazing speakers for this program. KP sir has joined us offline and there are 6 to 7 speakers who joined us offline, and there are some many other audience who joined us in online mode. So probably they may not be aware about KC College. So it's my proud privilege to introduce my college in a brief. Sir, we started our institute in the year 2001 with the vision to impart quality technical education to the student so that we will be able to produce successful engineers, technocrats, and future leaders. Our institute is NAAC accredited, and recently two of our engineering branches, namely computer engineering and electronics and telecommunication, also got accredited by National Board of Accreditation. Our institute is business incubator of MSME. If you check the placement scenario of our institute, last few years, we have been doing phenomenal job as far as placement of student is concerned. Recently, we could place more than 200 students in various reputed industries, isn't it, out of 240, and this is the highest number so far in the history of KC College of Engineering. Since it's a technology day, so even though my part is to deliver welcome speech, but I would also like to take one chance to share some of my views on this special occasion. If you see industry, I'm talking about semiconductor industry. The job of semiconductor industry is to produce IC. So this semiconductor industry has been a talk of town these days, isn't it? If you see newspaper, if you see news channel, English news channel, you will see a lot of people are speaking about this semiconductor industry. So it is said that in the year 2021, semiconductor industry had done the business of 400 billion US dollar, and by 2028, this business is likely to reach more than 800 billion US dollar at the growth rate of 8.6%. It is said that in semiconductor industry, China is leading in the world, followed by South Korea and Singapore and other countries. If you check which region of the world supplies more than, I mean to say, supplies more electronic goods or ICs or electronic gadgets, you will come to know that Asia region supplies more than 70% of electronic related stuff to rest of the world. But in the list of Asian countries, if you check where India is, you will come to know that India do not stand anywhere, isn't it? China is the dominant, South Korea, Japan, Singapore, all other countries are standing in the list, but there is no place for India. India is exclusively dependent on the import from other countries, particularly from China. Even though we hold second largest population in the world, but as far as semiconductor related stuff is concerned, we are lagging behind. Right? So there was technological war between US and China. There was trade war between US and China. So there was a war between US and China, but India was having short of, ISIS, because we were completely dependent on other countries, isn't it? So I take this as an opportunity from you all that you should also pay serious attention towards semiconductor industry to make your career in semiconductor industry. This semiconductor industry is also known as VLSI industry. I understand most of the students want to make their career in IT, but the base of IT is VLSI, semiconductor industry. If there is no semiconductor industry, there is no value to IT or ITS related branch, isn't it? So I want to convey you all on this occasion that if we want to make India independent of of other countries, particularly in this field, I appeal the students and faculty members to pay attention and start thinking how you can enter into this field, how you can make your career, and how you can make your own country, isn't it, independent in this particular field, right? So this is the only message I want to give it to you on this occasion. Thanks for patient listening. Thank you, Mishra sir, once again. Thanks all the guests to join me online. Thank you, Vananda.
Thank you, Principal Sir. Moving on to the felicitation, we have an offline guest with us, Dr. Kaushal Prasad Mishra. It's an honor to introduce you, sir. Dr. Mishra was head Radiation Biology and Health Sciences Division, Baba Atomic Research Center, Government of India. He was Vice Chancellor and Gujarat Bharati University, Deemed University, Allahabad. He was adjunct professor at Department of Life Sciences, University at Mumbai, and at the Institute of Technology, Manipal Academy of Higher Education, India. He is a fellow of National Academy of Sciences, fellow of Maharashtra Academy of Science, and fellow of International Academy of Physical Science. Founder President, Society of Radiation Radiation International Academy of Physical Science. He is also the founder of President, Society of Radiation Researchers, India. He is also President, India Biophysical Society, and he has visited a lot of places as visiting professor. He has a lot of national and international publications, and it is reaching almost 250 papers with a citation of more than 4,000 and guided 51 research students. He is also a jovial board member of more than 10 national and international journals. We heartily welcome you, sir. And I request Principal Sir to please felicitate Dr. Kaushal Prasad Mishra. A very warm welcome to all the online members. Moving on to the speaker session, I have a pleasure of introducing Professor Narendra G. Shah, Member Secretary, Rajiv Gandhi Science and Technology Commission, Government of India, Government of Maharashtra, Mumbai. Professor Narendra Shah earned his doctoral in process engineering from UCB, France, Agri, Machinery and Food Processing from Asian Institute of Technology. Can I have some silence, please?
Hello.
He has B.Tech from Rahuri, Maharashtra. At IIT Bombay, he taught courses in food engineering, agro-based industry, food and nutrition delivery. His areas of research are value addition in agro-food processing, technology for food preservation, and food formulation for addressing malnutrition. Dr. Shah has 90 publications based on his R&D. He has received several awards for his research work. He has more than 3 patents to his credit. He's a group leader for project in agro-food domain activities of Tata Center for Technology and Design at IIT Bombay. He carries a passion for technology development and diffusion in agriculture, agro-food industry, and nutrition towards inclusive growth. Some of his research projects in nutrition deal with lipid-based, that is, ready-to-use therapeutic foods for malnourished children below 6 years, and food supplementation using soya-based fortified health drink for school-going children in Mumbai suburbs. Professor Shah has recently been invited at AIT Bangkok, Thailand to teach semester-long courses on agro-industry development for students for agri-business management. A great welcome to Dr. Narendra Shah.
Okay. Madam, may I request Professor
Along
before
with
we
him,
begin with. Hello.
Next, along with him, we have Professor Sahana Murthy. Sahana Murthy is a professor in the Educational Technology Interdisciplinary Program at IIT Bombay. Her research interest is in technology-enhanced learning of disciplinary practices, which includes developing students' problem-solving, design thinking, and inquiry practices in STEM domains. Another area of focus is teacher use of educational technologies, which has led to design the large-scale blended teacher professional development programs. Currently, she is leading at the EduTech Tulna initiative, a quality evaluation index for EduTech products. Before joining IIT Bombay, she was a postdoctoral researcher at Rutgers University and MIT, USA. She received a bachelor's degree from University of Mumbai and master degree from IIT Bombay and PhD in physics. To chair the session, I request Professor A.K. Singh to take on. And we heartily welcome you all, sir. And moving on to the session. Over to Professor A.K. Singh. I request all the dignitaries to please be seated.
Thank you, madam. It's my pleasure to be with you all here. We have two speakers in this session.
I request Professor A.K. Singh to please give the welcome note.
Thank you very much, madam. As I said, I'm pleased to be part of this program. And we have two speakers in this session. One is...
sound person.
Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
So I invite Professor Narendra Shah right away. We don't want to waste time to please deliver his lecture. Already the speaker has been very nicely introduced. Thank you very much for that. So Professor Shah, please. Pleasure to listen to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all. Those, of course, I think those who were in the dais have, now I understand, have come down because they want to also see the PowerPoint presentation. It's possible to share the screen, right?
Yes, sir. You can share your screen.
Right. So let me do that.
Dr. Shah, are you on? Are you sharing?
Yes, I am now trying to share my screen.
Correct.
And can you see my screen, sir?
Yes, we can. We can. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, it is, but begin with, I must say that these are the times of what we call transdisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity and collaborative efforts. If you really want to make any impact.
Sorry to intervene. I request all others to please mute so that there is no echo or any other problem. Please go ahead.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, you are now very clearly audible. Please.
Right. So, you know, it is like, you know, everywhere we hear that if you want to make any, you know, a research which has a high impact, you have to sort of, you know, do it. Problem solving has to be, interdisciplinarity has to be brought in, or what we also call as transdisciplinarity has to brought in. And collaboration is really key of the a day to sort of, you know, really make something societal impact that you want to do. And in that sense, the NASI, for example, which is a National Academy of Sciences, organizing a technology day, and institutes of technologies like, for example, IITs, who arrange the science days, to my mind, is a really a sort of, already an cross-disciplinary or interdisciplinarity, and we really need to synergize, and if we really want to sort of, take the science-driven and technology-driven developmental activities. And it was also nice to see, for example, young students, and for professors, it's always sort of, last 2 years had been, teaching online. Before I joined this, my assignment at the government of Maharashtra on the as a member secretary of Science and Technology and Commission, Science and Technology Commission, I used to teach at IIT Bombay. I did that for 30 years. And last 2 years, really, we missed seeing students in person. So it was in that sense to see in the hall so many students, it is really inspiring. So what the organizers have asked me to sort of give some idea about what a Science and Technology Commission in the government does in order to sort of promote R&D culture and sort of, innovation culture, but to sort of take you through the sort of, socio-economic, I mean, to create an impact, as I said, in socio-economic development of the community. So, is it my full screen, or is it better now?
Perfect. It's perfect. Please proceed.
Yeah.
Perfect. No problem.
Yeah. So the here are actually I'm putting some very in bulleted points. What are the objectives of the Science and Technology Commission? It is like said in the mission and vision statement that the objectives of the commission are to be a change for development and advancement through S&T inputs, to stimulate interaction between universities, R&D institutions, and industries. Subsequently, to propagate applications of science and technology through studies, projects, and field demonstrations. To provide necessary seed grants for identified S&T projects. And I must say here, for example, we really, I mean, it's, many of you would know our chairman, Dr. Anil Kakodkarji. He clearly says on various platforms during various meetings that we organize that it is the colleges and universities which are not only in Mumbai and Pune, but also go to the official cities, or the towns and the universities where, for example, really the research and development culture is not there. What we say that it's, I mean, we only take pride in what sort of, our IIT students and faculty members do, or UBCT students and faculties do. But there are so many colleges, and I'm sure as the principal Professor Nitnaure was saying about the VLSI and things like that, and he was also trying to inspire the young students to work on all those semiconductor chips, and trying to sort of, I mean, it's not an easy task to sit in the line of countries like China, he mentioned Singapore and Korea and all that, but if possible, and that's how he sort of appealed. So how do you sort of inculcate science and technology or the research culture? So that's one of the so to provide necessary. So essentially, actually, you will see, for example, later in one of the slides that we have a university grant scheme, and we have really gone to universities, not these big ticket universities like IIT, UCT, and all that, but the smaller run colleges and universities. Also, the another sort of function of or the objective of the commission is to facilitate basically a transfer of technology between generators of technology like the universities and institutions and research centers, and even sometimes some NGOs, for example, who also sort of participate in technology development. So how do you, so because what we say that in the business of technology generation and development and transfer, one of the very, very difficult tasks is to sort of do technology transfer. And particularly, I'll come to tell you about what are the challenges of technology development and transfer in in rural areas is one of the sort of, principal focus, as I have been saying, to say about of the RGSTC committee. Then to promote application-oriented R&D work and its utilization. So we have actually essentially the commission works through 4 different schemes. One is, like we said, as assistance for SNP applications. So we have a call for proposals wherein sort of, the academic institutions, be it engineering colleges, medical colleges, pharmaceutical colleges, or other sort of, science colleges who sort of submit proposals, and which is sort of assessed through at 2 different levels. We have what we call committee of peers, which does the pre-proposals. For example, a brief proposal is sort of, asked, the faculty members are asked to submit pre-proposals, based on which, if they are selected, they are asked to submit the detailed project proposals. And at a second level, what we call it as, like, project assessment committee. So we have the committee of peers and project assessment committee, which does the and then the grants are given. Then, as I mentioned, we have something like 13 universities. You will see the list in one of my slides to come later, that we have 13 universities to whom we have given the grants, because often at times, as a part of my role at IIT Bombay, when I was working with the Center for Technology Alternatives for Rural Areas, we used to see that, these colleges in official areas, you see that students are really, you see something in their eyes. And there, for example, the research culture is not so much as one would wish. And therefore, we have given the grants upfront to these universities, so that the constituent colleges, those who are doing, for example, PG level sort of research, students are doing, often at times they don't have, they don't have funds to sort of, a little instrument purchasing or maintenance of that little R&D that they require to complete their master's and PhD program. So this second program is really caters to that kind of a need or requirement. Then we have the, science and innovation activity centers. Often at times we hear that, you catch the people when they're young. So really at the schools, we have actually at 4 different places, we have this CX, or also called the Science and Innovation Activity Centers at schools. You would have heard about, Atal Tinkering Labs and things like that, where, for example, it's typically called Tod Jod Labs. Tod Jod Labs. Because what happens in undergraduate curricula, the students do not get, because last 2 years was very extremely during the pandemic, the students, and it was a challenge, in fact, to the technology teachers, as to how do you sort of conduct online a lab course, so if, hopefully we are out of that, and the new batches will not suffer, because hands-on is hands-on. Doing labs it has a definite role in technology education, engineering education, and we have at 4 different places we have funded these science and innovation activity centers, and the slide later will show you which are the schools where we have, and there is a sort of, aspiration at the commission that each district, at least there should be one school. Maharashtra has something like 35 districts. So right now we have 6, and we want to sort of go to 36. Then we have this internship program, which is like, modeled on the TIFAX internship. And basically what the philosophy here is, the small industries, they can sort of, pose the problems, and if the students can sort of, work on a given problem or a worked out problem by the faculty member and the small scale industry, and the students get to work in 2 phases. So that's something which the commission is funding. So the statement that you just saw, that, rural development through knowledge and technology enables human capacity building. I just want to bring to you these 2 gentlemen. Most of you would know, but some of our younger, I brought these, I made these slides for some of our younger friends who are sitting in the hall. The first gentleman, and many of you know that he was a metallurgy engineer. He was an engineer, and he contributed to the White Revolution in India during 1963 to 79. And what she said at one time was India's place in the sun would come from the partnership between wisdom of its rural people and skill of its professionals. So, it's often at times we also say that in technology development, agar Shastri or Mistri mil jate hai, so you can create wonders. So Mistri is somebody who works with his hands and does things, wonderful things, and Shastri is who explains the science behind how things work and how you can replicate in a better way. And another person that we want to sort of show you to the young audience here is the scientist who contributed heavily and was a driver for Green Revolution. So, you had White Revolution, you have Green Revolution, and now, for example, we're talking about Rainbow Revolution, which is like, all fruits and you must have heard when I was introduced, it was told about my food and nutrition interest. So what we say that, like what is coming in the food and nutrition field is like, food to food fortification. In the sense that we don't have to really take those pills of vitamin D and vitamin A and vitamin B, which is quite spreading. And the doctors, you would have seen often sort of, push those pills or these vitamin capsules. But if we can have food to food fortification, how can we fortify it? How can we get things like moringa, for example? Moringa is nothing but drumstick. And this is something, a very tropical resource. How can we sort of fortify our food that we eat using this? So this gentleman contributed to this. And if you see on, they have one MS Swaminathan Foundation, which also catches people at young, and they say that, you have to have the basic learning skills of in science. If you really want to practice science, how do you observe? How do you classify things? How do you communicate things? Measure things. That's one of the sort of key function of an engineer. How do you measure? And then basically ready. So one of the schemes that I mentioned, I already told you about. We have this call for proposals. Then our committee of peers assesses your pre-proposal, and then you have a detailed project proposal. It is referred to experts. So it's like similar to what DST does, for example. So the commission is really a DST for the state. And then sort of, so just to give you a list or the rubric, under the rubrics, what are the major projects that we have funded? So if any of the college teachers are here, for example, they could sort of get an idea as to what kind of projects the commission has funded so far. So we have this Biomedical Engineering Technology Incubation Center, which is located at IIT Bombay, Betic Lab as they call it. So this was one of the sort of, big ticket project that the commission had funded. Then we had this Maharashtra Gene Bank, for example, where sort of, all sort of the bioresources, you have the animal genes, you have the crop genes, you have the fishery genes and all that. So now I'll show you in a slide, for example, how the mainstream government program, how it has gone into, like the commission initiated something 3-4 years back, and now, for example, it's a news hot from oven that Maharashtra government has announced 224 crores as the mainstream project and I'll show you in the sort of news, which is hot from oven. Then we also have funded this medicinal plant resources of Maharashtra, the digitized database, which was created by Agarkar Research Institute in Pune, and ICER in Pune had also jointly sort of done this with Agarkar Research Institute. Then we also have, one of the missions that I was mentioning, Gadchiroli is one of the neglected area, unreached area as far as development is concerned, because Gadchiroli is something like 95% tribal. Some of you may know, some of you may not know. So this is near Nagpur, about 200 kilometers from Nagpur. And there, for example, we have created as a part of the university one STRC, which is Science and Technology Center, Resource Center, where students and faculty members can participate in applied research. And some of you may know, we have one IDC at IIT Bombay, Industrial Design Center. They have now sort of started offering, in association with IDC, bamboo diploma for 2 years. So look at that. I mean, Gadchiroli and Mumbai is so far, but as we can see, for example, if you really want to do something, and that's the sort of commission's mandate to create some kind of a collaboration and create impact. Then we also have a big program which is called SELECT, which earlier they used to, it is known under the Abdul Kalam had called it as rural urbanization, providing all the urban facilities and infrastructure in rural areas. So it is something to rural urbanization. So here is some data. For example, this is available also on the website of our commission, that how many projects we did. I gave you an idea what kind of projects. So here is some pictorial thing as to what kind of projects we did. For example, we had something on turmeric processing, which was done by one of the agriculture universities located in Akola. That how can we sort of enhance the turmeric processing? So turmeric, as you know, is one of the important resource. It has the medicinal properties, and it's a very hard process of sort of boiling and subsequent drying and things like that. So all these unit operations of boiling and drying. So this was a technology, process technology, which was tested in field along with a farmer. Then we had this Ratnagiri Fisheries College, for example, had done something on mud crab. So those of you, for example, who are fish eaters or eaters of non-veg, you see, for example, what this stands for in some of those who come from Konkan area, that this mud crab is something which is a local delicacy, but there is no hatchery, for example, something which provides to farmers the sort of seeds of this mud crab. So we had funded a project with Ratnagiri Fishery College, and it has really matured. This was funded about 6 to 7 years back, and now they have a kind of a package of technology by which we can give it to and to tell you sort of just 10 days back we met these innovators, and there is this plant of JSW, some of you may know, Jindal Steel Works. They are ready to sort of undertake this as a part of their CSR as to set up this kind of a facility to have the hatchery for mud crab. Then there was again fish and fisheries products, because in terms of foods and nutrition, the best omega-3 omega-6 ratio that you can get is like in the fish. And so this was one project. Then we had one professor from UDCT who worked in Gokul Dairy in Kolhapur, something on optimized heat-based refrigeration. So while you are generating heat to sort of process the milk, you can also sort of do the refrigeration, because you need both heat and cold in a dairy processing plant. So he demonstrated that part of the technology. Then we had this exotic wine preparation again from UDCT, or now it is called ICT. And another challenge, of course, that we are facing is like whatever these technologies, how do you get a multiplier effect? So in order to do that, we have now sort of, about 2 years back, we have tied up with one Maratha Chamber of Commerce, Industries and Agriculture in Pune. A technology transfer cell has been funded to them. So they would sort of, help these PIs to sort of bridge the gap between the entrepreneurs, startups and things like that, to sort of, possibly create more unicorns. That's the hope. We also have this FIDES, for example, which is a program of Tata Trust, Foundation for Innovation and Social Entrepreneurship. We are also working with them, because we are extremely conscious that this technology transfer, and particularly, as I said, rural areas, is not an easy function. It has complexities in it. And recently, for example, in a new center called Desai Sethi School of Entrepreneurship at IIT Bombay and BNIT Nagpur, we have also given this project which is called Technology Accelerator. So it may not be out of place to say this on the sort of technology day, that whatever was 1998, it was recalled. So something like this for the commission takes a great pride in this BETIC project of IIT Bombay, wherein so many sort of startups were started, and then you had so many IPs which were generated, and sort of, so this, when I say again, a collaboration is the key word. How, for example, the engineering faculty and the medical biological sciences can come together and solve some of these biomedical engineering challenges. So this is an example. So those of you who have some inclination, some interest, I think should visit this Betic lab located in IIT Bombay. It's not too far from Bombay, is not too far from Thane. I'm saying this to the students who are present there and who have a flair for, this kind of interdisciplinary work. That how can you have diagnostics? How can you make devices? Orthosis, for example, like they put food and all that you would have heard. So it is worth seeing, and seeing is believing. So this is one of the projects that the commission really takes a pride in, because it was a big ticket project and it did create that kind of an impact in sort of synergizing medical colleges and the engineering colleges. Okay, so one more project I was just mentioning to you about this, Maharashtra Gene Bank project, and I said that I'm going to tell you, show you. So look at the date, those of you who read Marathi. You see, this is 28th April. So hardly 2 weeks back, the government declared that it has given some, 270 crores for this project, which is mainstream or the main department of the government. So what we feel here, what we want to show here is how S&T Commission can drive an important political decision to create a positive scientific development. Similarly, in addition to this gene bank, we have sort of this digitized sort of library of medicinal plant, which is resources of Maharashtra. I was just mentioning to you about ICER Pune, which and the Agarkar Institute in Pune, which helped us get this done. Then again, for example, this is a little busy slide as you see it here. For example, I was mentioning to you about the silage project, that city and village combined word, or rural urbanization, as we say. So how can we sort of imbibe, or how can we drive, how can you create livelihoods by using scientific principles, sciences, outcomes of national laboratories, outcomes from academic institutions, and sort of, tie it up with the livelihood creation is what something. So there are some of these projects that we have completed. It's shown here. So I mentioned to you about this STRC, Science and Technology Resource Center. So see, bamboo, for example, is one of the important resources there. And we started a bamboo diploma, we funded a bamboo diploma with the help of IDC, for example, at STRC. Now they are running this a 2-year program, which is those who have just passed 10th, they can do this kind of a diploma and get some livelihoods by using the local resources. So these are the universities. I mentioned to you about 13 universities. So there are 10 normal, what do you call, non-agriculture universities, let's call it, and there are 3 agriculture universities. So some of you would know about this: Jalgaon, Nanded, Kolhapur, Pune, Nagpur, Solapur, Amravati, Aurangabad, Lonere, and Akola. Those who are from Maharashtra would know these cities, and they have these universities. And as we say, the mandate is to have these lower rung colleges, lower rung universities that we. This was an internship program, and we feel that, like the medical pedagogy, where they say that the doctor is really made during the internship. If somebody passes MBBS, he's not allowed to touch a patient, he's not allowed to do his work unless he completes 1-year internship, which was not happening in engineering education. So of late, many colleges encourage that. IIT Bombay, I know, for example, they do encourage students to go out during their curriculum, and they also can gain some academic credits. But what is most important was the TIFAC, for example. Some of you would know Technology Information Forecasting and Assessment Council, TIFAC, as a part of DST, had this kind of a template for students to work at MSME, the medium and small scale industries, and to solve their problems with the students, engineering students, and their faculty members, how they were placed, and how the students also get, by working, on the practical problem of an industry, how they help, and in the process got some problem solving skills. And the last, I think perhaps I wanted to mention about the Science and Innovation Activity Centers. So look at the names of the towns, Varananagar, which is near Kolhapur. Quite a few of them you might be using milk which is supplied by Varna Dairy. So this is a small township, and where we have this Tod Fod Tod Lab, which is under the scheme of Science and Innovation Activity Center. Then we have another place called Loni, which is in Ahmednagar district. We have, so you see our commission chairman, for example, traveling to all these small city labs which are set up under the SIAC. So how students can sort of be engaged into, and like as you say, catch them young, and students in this 5th standard to 10th standard can also. So Amravati is another place, Satarai, and then we have added 2 more places, for example. One is Baramati and another is Ratnagiri. Devruk, actually, in the district of Ratnagiri. So these all 6 centers are now functioning. Visitors come, the students' parents also come, because they got the exhibits there under the NCSM, National Council for Science Museums, have put the working exhibits there. So they get to see, for example, various science outcomes, and how, for example, difficult things that you find it difficult to learn it from theory inside the classroom. They visit here, and this kind of a facility is provided in these small towns. Okay, so we also participate in some national programs. We have a patent information cell for Maharashtra state. Then we have the National Science Day, and then the National Mathematics Day. Then India International Science Festivals are organized, for example, once in 3 years. We participate in that. And we have one special innovation hub, which is set up as a Solapur Science Center, for example. In the entire state, for example, we have created something similar to a Nehru Science Center. Some of you might have heard that early we have the Nehru Science Center. Something similar in a small town, we have set it up. So that's all processing. I hope I have not taken too much of the time.
No, it's always a pleasure to hear to you, listen to you. I think you have made exactly in the time allotted to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And it was very motivating talk. I think I'm sure you would be happy to take up a few questions and clarifications, if any.
Sure.
So friends, if there are any queries, questions, or you want to any clarification, please feel free. Talk is open. Anybody? I don't see any hands. If none, then I think we will conclude this lecture by Dr. Shah. But let me, Dr. Shah, assure you, it was a fantastic presentation. You gave a panoramic view of what exactly the Science and Technology Commission, Rajiv Gandhi ST, is doing in Maharashtra. I think this is the kind of technology that we really like to do, because it is at the ground zero level. You are interacting with the villagers and areas which usually is not traversed by people sitting in IITs or big colleges and big universities. Second thing that I would certainly like to comment on is your intention to interface with the MSMEs, because MSMEs are the institutions which hardly have money to really spend in R&D. So if institutes like yours or any other such institutions can interface them, and if their facilities are, but their concerns are taken care of by the big institutions, I think MSMEs will grow really a lot. And finally, I think you also talked about, besides these very useful things for the villages, you talked about new age technologies, whether it is 3D printing or whether it is what do you call these days, biological factories, replacing the classical factories based on chimneys, etc. Or whether it is, as I said, biological manufacturing, actually we call it. And devices are going to be very, very important for the villagers. So these are some of the things which, of course, need very high degree of science and technology. But at the same time, they are at the ground zero level and they're helping the society and the people at large. So it's a great thing that you are doing. Thank you very much for enlightening us. And I'm sure you will be willing to interface with us as and when we need you in the future. Last request I have with you, is it okay if we share your slides with the Academy?
Sure, absolutely.
I think
Absolutely,
I'll
absolutely.
tell you why, because the academy is very much interested in interacting with the State Science and Technology Council. And from that angle, if you wish and if you allow us, then we would like to share your slides and projects, of course, after editing as you wish. So
Right.
the edited version can be shared with the academy for a larger benefit of the people and larger benefit of the scientific and technological society of the country. Would it be okay?
I will send it to Dr. Hassan
Or
just after the
a copy to me as well.
Yeah, sure. I'll copy it.
So thank you very much, sir. It was pleasure listening to you, and great job. Thanks a lot. I really admire you. So friends, with this we conclude the first lecture and we move on to the second talk, which again is going to be delivered by an ardent supporter of how technology can intervene in bringing about radical changes in our educational system and education, imparting education in science and technology. I'm talking about Professor Suhana Murthy from IIT Bombay. Already again, the speaker has been introduced, so therefore I will refrain from further saying any words about her. But it's a great pleasure, Dr. Murthy, to have you here in this meeting, and we look forward to your talk on how this technology intervention is going to help us, particularly post-COVID-19 era. And I think talks like you or the topics like you or what you are going to tell us perhaps are going to be the need of many around, not only in this country, but many around the globe. So I invite you. It's my great pleasure to have you here, and please deliver your talk. Dr. Suhana Murthy, please. Sahana Murthy, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Singh. Thanks for the invitation to this event on National Technology Day to NASI and the organizers. And thanks again very much for the kind introduction. I'm just going to take a moment to share my slides. Please. Okay, I hope it's visible now. So I deliberately left the title a bit provocative, by asking, will technology indeed help in making our students better learners? And the reason I put this question right at the beginning is because, especially post-COVID, right, there's a lot of attention on technology in education. And the perceptions go all across the spectrum. It's really the best thing and it'll do great wonders, or no, look, technology can do a lot of, it can distract learners, it's just a hype. So perceptions are all over the place. And I thought it would be a useful thing to look a little bit at the research literature, as well as share some of the things we've been doing in our department to try to, understand what exactly can technology bring to learning and teaching, because finally that's what we are focusing on, right? The learners and the teachers. So before I begin with the actual talk, I just want to take a few minutes to introduce our department, because it's one of the few departments in the country, education technology, which is there as an academic department in a big institute or university. There are a few more in the country and a few across the world, but it's a nascent discipline. So what exactly is this discipline and what do we do here? So what our department was established in 2010. So we're just over a decade old. It's called an interdisciplinary program because of two reasons. One is that essentially it's a small department in IIT Bombay, and most of the emergent small departments have this name. But more importantly, we have core faculty with backgrounds in the learning sciences, physics education research, computer science education research, geology education research, as well as associate faculty from the other departments in IIT Bombay, the engineering department, science, design, IDC design school, humanities and social sciences, and so on. So it is, in terms of the topics, there is technology, there is education, there's psychology, there's design, there is human-computer interaction. So it is an interdisciplinary program in that sense. We started with a PhD program. We have about 20 alumni so far and 35 current PhD research scholars. And just about 2 years ago, we started an MTech program. So what we do is research as expected from a large department, from any department in the institute. I'll come to the research in more detail in a few minutes. In addition, we do a lot of development of curricular development, for example, MOOCs. So on SWAYAM and IIT Bombay X, we have several MOOCs. We do a lot of teacher professional development and faculty professional development programs on how to teach in the blended and online mode. We develop what we call as technology-enhanced learning environments. These are computer-based systems for students to learn from. I'll give you a couple of examples. Other tools to support teaching. And the one example I've highlighted here is called OTeach, what we call as OTeach. So this was created at the beginning of the lockdown because our institute asked us that can you quickly create something to help other instructors navigate to online teaching during the lockdown. So it was created in May 2020. And then we put in a lot of work to colleagues and to faculty members and a couple of graduate students. And this is a public website. We call it a self-paced course because it has videos, it has small questions, assignments, references, and so on. So I'll share the slides later, and please feel free to use any of it later. This has seen about over 25,000 hits so far. Okay, so research quickly. So we have student-facing projects, that is projects related to students and learning. And one of the flagship projects is called Technology Enhanced Learning of Disciplinary Practices. What we mean by a disciplinary practice is going beyond content. Of course, content is important. Electrical engineering is important. Science is important. Biology, physics, maths, all of it is important. But there are certain common practices that scientists and engineers use very regularly. They develop expertise in it. Practices such as design thinking, estimation, troubleshooting, problem solving. Problem solving is kind of large, but the kind of specific kind of problems that engineers use is estimation all the time. Scientists do a lot of hypothesis generation and testing. So the data interpretation, visual representations. So there's a lot of research that shows that students do not automatically acquire these even when we teach them content. So this project is to help. It has two goals. One is to design technology-based learning activities and scaffolds and supports so that students can learn these practices so that they can develop them. And second is the theoretical aspect. What are the learning mechanisms, the learning processes as students go through these activities, and also how do experts do this? So the first, the theoretical aspect is more closer towards, say, cognitive science and all, and the design is again both for practitioners as well as researchers. So the pictures you see, this one is a learning environment called Metal. It's meant for engineering estimation. It's a computer-based system where students log in and they're given problems. They have to solve it on their own. There's no teacher in the picture. It's a very open-ended problem. The one for example, estimate the power of a human heart, or can a human heart power a wine opener? Questions like those are given, along with simulations, along with how to model the system and so on. The one on the right is a colleague and his PhD students worked on in a 6th grade classroom, helping students learn designing something with robotics. Okay, the other research area which I'll spend a lot of time today on for the rest of the talk is called teacher use of educational technologies, where we build frameworks and models. The image you see on the right is called the learner-centric MOOC or LCM model, from which a lot of design principles has emerged. We have developed curricula, courses, and tools. Again, the image here, it's called ISAT. It's a tool for teachers to compare students' performance very quickly, visually, across many dimensions. And again, outreach such as MOOCs and other workshops. Here, it's the numbers here that we are most, we emphasize numbers as well as the geographical spread. Another research area which a couple of my colleagues are experts on is educational data analytics or learning analytics, which now is very, very current, where they use various technologies and do multimodal analysis to understand how students learn, and then design personalized and adaptive feedback to help them improve their learning or engagement or their metacognition and so on. And finally, we also look at some emerging technologies and design small curricular interventions along with the pedagogical strategies. So this would be a good transition to go into the actual talk. When we talk of technologies for learning, right, for technologies in education, there's a whole spectrum. Okay? The list on the left side is from Technology Roadmap Education, which was a TIFAC report. It's called Technology Vision 2035. It came out a few years ago. And they list a number of different types of technologies. And then they ask some questions related to it. If we go more concrete and look at examples, I think many of you will be familiar with some, if not all of these. Animations and simulations, educational games, 3D printing, it was mentioned by Professor Shah in the previous talk, augmented reality, virtual reality and virtual worlds, learning analytics, adaptation, mobile apps, there are thousands, not just hundreds of them, MOOCs and so on. So given this really wide, diverse spectrum, the question to ask is, the question that the Technology Vision report has asked is, can these technologies actually have a transformational impact on education? Right? It's a very broad question, and they argue through their large report what kind of impact it does. In this talk, I want to focus a little bit more. I want to scope it and ask, will these technologies help learners? Will they help learning? And if so, how? Okay, so I want to try to illustrate this through two cases, through two illustrative cases. The first one is about online teaching and learning. And this, again, during COVID and post-COVID, it's really in the forefront, right? All of us had to move to online learning. And even after COVID is sort of fading away, we are using blended modes. I mean, just see this today's session. So here, the questions to ask are, what really makes online teaching and learning effective? And are our perceptions, is there any evidence for our perceptions? So when I talk of perception, sometimes, we even call it myths, a little more provocative. Again, it's a range. But before I come to the myths, let's just quickly do a recap of what we mean by online mode and face-to-face. I know all of you are very familiar, but just to make sure we all have the same technical understanding. So in a standard traditional face-to-face mode, there are lectures. This is a very large lecture. First year lecture in IIT often looks like this. There's usually one speaker, the instructor, the students are sitting, they're listening. And then when they go back to their hostels or homes, they do a number of things. They're supposed to do homework, they're supposed to read and study and all. Sometimes they do it with their peers. The image doesn't show it. Sorry, this is some stock image. And typically, there is some percentage here. So in IIT, typically it's about 2/3 for the contact hours and 1/3 outside. Sometimes it's 50-50, so there is some such thing. What happens in the online mode is the synchronous sessions where the learners and the teachers are together at the same place at the same time. It could be a virtual place, but essentially they're there together, is through a platform like Zoom or Google Meet, WebEx, any of those. There is some talk happening, some slides happening, and all these learners, somewhere there's some different communication channels happening. And the asynchronous part where the learners go back is through course materials uploaded on some other learning management system or other platform. So now when we think of what our perceptions are about this is just a variety, okay? I'm not saying I'm endorsing these. I'm just saying, in fact, I'm not endorsing most of these, but this is what we typically hear. And these are the kind of perceptions even I myself would have had at one point. One is, if I have to move to online modes, how can I replicate my face-to-face class where I was doing so great? How can I teach me about Zoom? Tell me about the great features of Zoom. Okay, so the replication is where our mind goes. Another perception is that, oh, well, there's also the learning management system like Moodle or Canvas and all. So online teaching is mostly creating some videos and uploading it. Maybe put some quizzes. And then there are other kind of opinions, right? Online medium won't work for my topic. It won't work for my teaching style. It will never work for me. So I might throw up my hands and say that. Or I might go the other direction and say, look, it allows anytime, anywhere access. So it's the best for everyone. So this is really all ends, all corners of opinions. And we have to make sense of these. The evidence, the research-based evidence is somewhere in between all of this. It's nowhere along these extremes, but these extremes really help us understand the boundary. There are some limitations of online teaching. At the same time, there are some advantages. So that's what we would like to explore. So what I'm posting here is a survey of instructors and students, which was done in May 2020. The full report is available on archive. And essentially, I want to highlight two things. That one of the questions asked, many questions were there. One of the questions asked was, do you prefer synchronous mode or asynchronous mode? Faculty, almost half the faculty preferred synchronous, and less than 20%, I mean, less than half of it, 20% of the students did not do that. And it was reversed in the asynchronous mode. The students wanted asynchronous modes. The faculty did not think much. There was some distribution for both. So the takeaway actually, not just from here, but from a lot of other studies, is that we need to use a judicious blend of synchronous and asynchronous modes. The 2/3, 1/3 that we talked about in face-to-face, sometimes that's flipped. Sometimes it's 50-50. So the exact percentages have to be worked out, but we need both, because both synchronous and asynchronous modes bring their own advantages and they have cons. Why I'm highlighting this is, very often when we are invited to give a talk about online teaching, people ask us this first thing: tell me how to do my classroom lecturing on Zoom. And we say, look, that's not all. In fact, that's one piece of it. And there's a lot of resistance. So that's one reason I want to show these data. Okay, what happens if we actually mimic face-to-face instruction in online? If we only do a Zoom meeting, do a live lecture, we know that access could be an issue, shared devices, power, network infrastructure, and also engagement. So it's hard to follow a 1-hour lecture. In addition, if we use the meeting software to record and make this recording available for students for download later, this is useful, this is good, but it's not sufficient, because even short lectures have attention span problems. They're not watched by most. There is data on those. What if we do all this and upload videos, give assignments, conduct quizzes and all, which is what we've been doing mostly during COVID? This virtual lecture plus upload recording plus assignments is called emergency remote teaching. It's necessary, okay, in emergencies like a lockdown, but it still is missing stuff. So what is it missing? Aspects of, I'm putting it in quotes because we all have different opinions, but I think we will agree to almost all of these. Attention to student motivation, opportunities for immediate application, meaningful discussion, peer learning, adaptation, where the teacher customizes, immediately reacts and customizes his or her response. Learner connect during online sessions. So all of this is essential. And if we only do emergency remote teaching, it gets missed. So main takeaway, main recommendation is we should do online teaching based on established theories of how people learn. All of these come from a theoretical understanding of a modern theoretical understanding of how people learn. The reference at the bottom is one of the seminal works in this field. So all well and good, sounds great. How do I do it in the online mode, right? So I'm going to show you one quick example and then just summarize this part. So one example is called learning dialogues with reflection spots. So when we do online learning, this is kind of, you may say it's a glorified video. In a way, yes, but it has two key features. One is that the videos are short. If you are able to, I don't think you're able to see this. This is 8 minutes long. This is from one of my NPTEL courses. And I want you to focus on the white dots, which is right below my laser pointer here and here. What happens here is that the video automatically pauses, and it's called a reflection spot. That's the terminology. A question is asked by the instructor and the learners are asked to pause the video if the video doesn't automatically do it. A question is asked of them. The question you can see on the screen, doesn't matter what the content is. This can be done in any topic. The learner has to respond. Using technology, you can use technology like H5P or so to actually have the learner respond, get some quick feedback. And even if that doesn't happen, when the learner resumes the video, the instructor can do a summary of the responses. So this is called a learning dialogue because it's a simulated dialogue between the instructor and the teacher. It's not to replicate in-class work, but it's to increase cognitive engagement in the video. Cognitive engagement is where the learner is their attention is brought back to the topic at hand. So similarly, there are other design principles that come out of the LCM model that I talked about earlier. Recently, we published a paper with evidence on this model and what it has brought in terms of engagement, in terms of higher completion rates, higher participation, and so on. This is a model for instructors. If you want to design any online course or a MOOC, it almost gives a set of prescriptive guidelines on what you need to do with your videos. How do you do a video plus plus? How do you do your delta in activities and quizzes? How do you cater to learners with different backgrounds, different prerequisites, different interests? Those are called learning extension trajectories. And this can be done with technology much easier than in a face-to-face classroom. And how do you help learners? How do you leverage peer learning, going beyond discussion boards? So LCM model is, it's one way to incorporate such design principles. The other, okay, I have one more case to show, but why I want to put this takeaway here is you will see the word pedagogical strategies and something related to technology side by side. You will see power of online medium and you will see support learners and teaching. So the integration, the effective integration of technology and pedagogy is prime for effective learning and effective teaching. That's the point that I will keep coming back to. Okay, one more quick example. If you, in science and engineering, this is very common. We have animations. This is of a DNA strand. Well, in an animation, usually you can play, pause, and there's a voiceover here, right? It's like a movie, but an animated movie. There's a simulation, variable manipulation simulation. This was in fact created by one of our retired mechanical engineering professors at IIT Bombay. Learners can change the variables, see what happens here, and so on. And of course, there are videos. This is what's called a program visualization tool, and so on. These days, there are some very high quality animations and simulations and videos. Why do teachers use these? Maybe to make invisible items like atoms and cells visible, maybe to visualize the internals of a 3D machine for improved conceptual understanding. So we have learning related goals. Maybe for motivation and engagement, we have engagement related goals, not the same as learning. Maybe, I hope it's not, but maybe sometimes we do this because it's easier, but it should not be the only reason. How do instructors use these visualizations? Typically, all of us will play and show the demo on our screens, maybe give a narrative explanation, and students will watch and ask for clarification. Does this work? Is it effective? So what research says is, I'll just put all of it here. Showing demo plus narration alone is not effective. It's counterintuitive. You may not like it, but there is a lot of research that shows that if we show it and tell students about it, it's good for engagement, but it's not great for learning. What is needed is something else, because the potential benefits of those really wonderful simulations are lost if all I do as a teacher is show and tell. What I need to do is something called an active learning strategy. And there's a lot of research, again, some of the work we have done. So in order to make this very clear, I just want to actually show, I want to do a live demo with you. Okay, I'm going to show you a video, a 6-second video. Before that, let me explain what this is. So there'll be a person who will be pushing this cart. This is a cart here. Okay, it is enclosed in plexiglass, transparent plexiglass. I think that's visible. There's a balloon here. There's a string, which I don't think you can see, but the balloon is tied. It's a helium balloon. It's tied with a string, and there's a little notch at the bottom. Okay. What this person is going to do is push this cart this direction forward to my left as I'm seeing it. The person will abruptly push it, and the helium balloon is floating. Okay, it's tied to the cart, it's tethered to its bottom, so it's not floating away. This is for a fluids class in high school physics. Okay, it can do it even in a first year physics. So the question is, as soon as a person pushes it forward, will the balloon move forward? Will the balloon move backward like that? Or will it stay intact? And I'm going to just ask you quickly to either post in chat or just, raise your hands. I'm not even seeing it, I can't see it, but I want you to commit to something because it's very interesting what happens. So will the balloon move forward, backward, or will it stay intact? That's the question. And I do want to show you the video. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing this and just share the video for those 10 seconds as you make up your mind. I hope the video is visible. So I'll play this twice. I want you to pay attention to the very first 2 or 3 seconds. Watch the balloon. I'm going to click now. I paused it. See what happens to the balloon? It's moving forward. I'm going to play it again. He came back. He pushes it again. Okay. Why I showed this is that this is often counterintuitive. What we assume because of our, when we are in a bus or a car, we get thrown backwards, right? So we feel that that's what's going to happen to a balloon. But this is an excellent starting point for starting off a discussion on, why a balloon doesn't behave like a human being. I know I didn't go into full screen, but I hope it's okay. So what's important here is that I actually paused the video, asked you to vote. In a real class, I would actually wait and take your votes and then show you the video. I did not show you the video initially. The reason is our minds play tricks on us. If I show you the video and then ask what happened, some of you, I've been a victim myself, some of us will think that, oh, I expect the balloon to move backward like myself in a car. So my eyes are tricking me. Okay, so this is a way to use visualizations. Get a good visualization handy, ask your question, pause the video, make learners commit, make them vote, make them do a small problem on it, and then show them the video so that they get real-time feedback. Okay, so to summarize, make sure the design goal is clear. Are we talking of access? Are we talking of engagement? Are we talking of learning? If we are talking of learning, design accordingly. If we want learning to happen, we need to integrate pedagogical activities and harness the technology affordance along with it. And during the implementation, use something called an active learning strategy, which is exactly what we did in the last couple of minutes. So this would be a good time to stop. And I'm just going to put up a slide here, which is really one of the current projects we are doing, where we are creating design standards for EdTech apps for school level. And all the things that I mentioned in the last half an hour, we are codifying those as standards, and we are creating an evaluation rubric, and in public, putting up evaluation reports of various products out there. We have evaluated about 10 products so far. You're welcome to go and see it. It's a joint project with an NGO. And it's basically use the research, establish standards, evaluate products. And the main goal is to empower decision makers, teachers, governments, state governments, schools, colleges, on which products actually follow these design principles. So thank you very much. Back to you, Professor Singh.
Yeah, I think amazing lecture and so useful to all of us. We all have been doing teaching for 35, 40 years. I wish we had, we knew all the aspects that you have talked about. I have just a small query before I open the, the depth of treatment of a subject is taken very seriously, at least in an institute like ours. I mean ours, I mean IITs, for example. So how do you think, is this not an important point to take care of it? Because a lot of people are using in COVID as well as post-COVID, online facilities and doing teaching in court. So do you think that depth of treatment can also be taken care of by some new age technology, bringing newer things? You already have mentioned that, engagement is fine. I mean, you can engage a class, it's okay. But whether you are imparting the required knowledge and the wisdom, that's a different matter. So I thought your comment will be very Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So
Actually,
absolutely.
it also opens up a new topic for research, frankly.
Right, right. Absolutely. And in fact, I used the term discipline-based education research earlier.
Right,
That's a
right.
catch-all term where, for example, physicists, people with PhDs in physics or PhDs in math, do research in the teaching and learning of physics.
Right.
Okay. And so the American Physical Society and European Physical Society now recognize PER as a valid subfield like nuclear physics and particle physics and so
Right,
on.
right.
So I come from that background. That's why I'm mentioning physics.
Understandable, yeah.
Yeah. So depth is very important. And some of the research that is being done is how to, so for example, understanding of these microscopics, these invisible things, take Maxwell's equations, for example. It's so abstract. Or any molecular organic chemistry, you know, the cis and trans, the stereochemistry.
Geometricalized prism.
So it's very hard for students to conceptually understand these. So what these technologies can do is to connect to various learning modalities. For example, there was one slide I might have shown earlier where through an, I mean, while I speak, I'll just pull it up. Through an AR, learners can actually rotate the molecules and see whether the mirror images can get superimposed on each other or not. The one in the middle here.
Right.
Okay. So now this is a very small activity. It takes about maybe 5 minutes to do it. This is actually a teacher doing it. Textbooks have what you see on the left side. But what the AR does is bring it alive and the students can actually rotate it, try to make the mirror image. And because they're physically manipulating this, their conceptual understanding of this really abstract concept, it can, it helps them towards it.
Okay.
So like this, there are many such strategies and technologies combinations where, I mean, this is one example I gave.
I think you have a lot of work to do. You have to do, you have to train the trainers.
Yeah, that's one. So our teacher use of educational technology project is actually.
We used to run a course on training the trainers. Of course,
Right.
it was not taken very seriously because everybody thought that they know everything about teaching. So anyway, jokes
and
apart,
it's not like I know everything about teaching.
I know,
Or,
that's
I'm
right.
not coming to teach you, but there are some common principles that emerge from
agree.
psychology and cognitive science
That's
and
right.
learning sciences.
That's absolutely correct. And I
And
think
that's robust.
I know it is. And it's very much needed today. Anyway, I think the floor is open. If any queries, questions, I'm sure Professor will be happy to take it.
Professor Singh, am I entitled to ask a small question?
Absolutely, 200%.
Yeah, Professor Sahana was a colleague, and I'm sure she will sort of welcome this question as well. See, Professor Sahana, a lot of interlocutors or people there are worried about their children's education, school education, I'm saying. And there is so much ed tech that is going around. You have the Byju's and you have the whatever. So, what is your opinion? I mean, like, if I sit myself in the sort of, shoes of the school children, I would always love, for example, having something which is in person. My physics professor or my chemistry professor telling me wet chemistry, showing me what pH is and how. So, what is your take on in terms of, the delivery of education using this EdTech and things like that?
Yeah, so I will actually, I'll reframe the question. And it's really not about replacing the teacher here, okay? We are not, that's not what we are talking about. That's not what the research is also recommending, by no means. At the same time, there are certain things that technologies can afford us that we cannot do, or that we cannot do so easily or so well without it, provided it is done well. So where there is room for EdTech app is to support teachers, support learners, facilitate learning, complement.
That's right.
That's why what Professor Singh mentioned about training the teachers, it's not simply in how to use these apps, but
training the trainers, I said.
Training the teachers.
In big trouble.
Right. Training the trainers. It's not in how to use the technologies, it's more about how can I do better teaching with these, because these technologies have some useful and they can actually complement and supplement my teaching.
That's right, complement.
The second point which I want to respond to Professor Shah is there are in terms of quality, there's a huge range. Okay, we are not going to name names here. This project, EdTech Tulna, the whole aim is to help teachers and help schools and governments pick the ones, and I'll just show you one example of what I mean so here you can compare products or you can browse. I just want to show you, I'm picking something at random. So this is a math product for grades 1 to 8, and we have grade ranges, and we have given them quality ratings on content quality, pedagogical alignment, and technology on design. Each of these comprise about several criteria. So if you look at the details, if you click on any of the details, you will see here that there are many criteria, and we have evaluated it.
Whether she can hear me, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think.
So let me pause here.
Any other queries?
Yeah.
Yes, I have a query.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, this is to Sahana Murthy. Dr. It looks very impressive to use technology for learning, but too much of learning through online system brings in the isolation in the mind of the learner. When learner is in group, he very often learns by seeing, by interacting, and by talking and discussions. All those things will go away. And I wonder that the learning by technology, sitting at home and alone and anywhere, anytime, this will lead to a kind of different training to the brain. At the moment, brain works on imaginations. I worry that too much cooked material when you give to the mind doesn't then think beyond what is being taught on the table. What is your comment?
So
the
I
take away was
completely
blended mode. The take away was blended. Sorry.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I completely agree with most of what you said, sir. That isolation is a key concern, that peer learning is absolutely essential. I don't think anybody is recommending 100% online,
Right.
like Professor Singh said. Secondly, if in emergency situations like the lockdown, where we had to go to online, there are ways to bring peers together. There are ways to interact. It cannot replace face-to-face interaction. It cannot replace the emotional part, especially. But there are ways. So well done online learning is not just about downloading materials and consuming the cooked food. It's about critically examining, talking with my peers, and so on. So A, there are ways of doing it in the online mode, and B, the physical interaction, face-to-face interaction. I mean, we are human beings. We are social beings, right? It's absolutely essential. So why I said I agree with 90% is all of those. The only part where I want to add a little bit is that it is possible to do it to a certain extent, to bring in peer learning and interactions in the online mode also.
I think we'll stop over here. Already we are 7-8 minutes late. I'm sorry about it, but I think the topic was so interesting that I kept on, we continued. So, Professor Murthy, I think it's my pleasure to once again convey our gratefulness that you could make it and enrich us on a very important topic. And I'm sure that all who have joined this program have benefited a lot. So thank you once again. So I think this concludes the first session. And I think Dr. Hassan, it is over to you and see what is next to be done.
Yeah. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to thank Professor Singh for efficiently chairing the session and well on time with a lot of discussion, stimulating discussion in both the lectures. Now, I request our next session will be chaired by Professor K.P. Mishra. So may I request Mishra sir to take over to chair the session. Professor Mishra, please.
Dr. Hassan, there is no.
Going to be
Okay.
biology and biological engineering oriented. It's our mind that we have learned many questions about life, many questions about how the reproduction takes place, many things about DNA structure, the structure of cell, and so on. But there are exciting things happening. And I think on Technology Day like this, it's important that we take up some issues on the finer aspects of the life science. What are the technologies coming and what are the technologies at the moment known? And in future, how biology will change. Whole scenario is going to change completely. Maybe in 10, 15 years time, if you look back, what is happening today on this 11th May 2022, you will feel awed that what I knew and now what it is. So the biology is very, very interesting. And it is said that the next century is the century of biology. And in this session, we are going to talk about how from molecule to man, a story begins. Today we understand everything in terms of molecules. Today we understand life processes in terms of molecular reactions, what we call biochemistry. Today we learn whole medicine on the basis of molecular interactions. Today we learn whole thing that how genes act, how genes we can manipulate, how genes are going to become future technology. So this session I find quite interesting, but I would like to, before I invite Dr. Mishra to talk about this lecture, I would like to share with you that we had a very important speaker in this session, Dr. Om Srivastava from Jaslok Hospital. It was a confirmed talk. He was going to talk to us about the issues and challenges on COVID-19. As you know, he is a task force member of Maharashtra government on COVID management. But unfortunately, 2 days ago, he himself suffered from COVID. And today he is in Rich Candy Hospital. Therefore, he could not be with us this afternoon. So on your behalf, on my behalf, I wish him a speedy recovery. At present, he is in ICU and a very serious COVID attack. We will miss his lecture, but another time. This message I got yesterday from his son. He could not speak to me. So it's just to share with you that a very important speaker on COVID-19 was with us, and we missed. Nature's choice is fine, we accept. So we will confine in this session Dr. H.S. Mishra, who is head of Molecular Biology Division of Bhabha Atomic Research Center. Very fine researcher, very sharp questioner, and very devoted scientist, as I know him. The anchor would like to have his biodata to talk about. Do you have his CV, Dr. Mishra? I know it, so if you want to say something, you can. Yes, please introduce Dr. H.S. Mishra before I invite him to deliver his talk.
This one also I want.
This one?
Yeah.
Maybe I should be allowed to access the screen now. Permit me, please.
Who's the head
Hello?
of Molecular Biology Division and professor at Homi Bhabha National Institute. He is visiting scientists on deputation at various universities abroad and has also been invited to deliver lectures. He is also invited to deliver talks during various national and international seminars and conferences. He has received several awards and fellowship from different bodies. He's also served as a thesis examiner at different universities apart from being the member of member of Board of Studies. A warm welcome to Professor Harisharan Mishra. Over to you. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Take over the session.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can
Hello?
hear you.
Am I audible? I am not
Yes.
allowed to share my screen, it looks like.
Sir, yes, you can share your screen. All participants can share their screen. Please try
Oh,
once.
it's not going with me. Just bear with me some time. I think I'm having difficulty in sharing my screen. Can you see it now? Hello?
Yes, sir, it has started.
Can you see
Yes,
my
yes,
screen?
yes, sir,
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so before I start my talk, I want to thank Professor Hassan and Professor Singh for making me the part of this day today, and Dr. Mishra for giving some brief introduction, and Madam for elaborating a brief kind of thing. While listening this last two sessions, I realized that today is the National Technology Day, and what I am going to talk about is actually most fitted for National Science Day. But I attended National Technology Day inauguration today morning in BRC, and I got some points from my director, BRC. He actually narrated the energy component of nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. And he said that nuclear fission, the science is done for last several years, has become the technology, but a lot more needs to be done on the fundamental aspects of nuclear fusion, which may become a technology tomorrow. And the other aspects which actually I picked up, that it was Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan and Jai Vigyan, but more recently it has been added to Jai Anusandhan. It means a need has been felt that we need to do lot more research on the fundamental aspects, and as you know that basic research is always the mother of application where technology can be developed. So with these words, I am going to start my presentation, and I hope that towards end of it, I'll be able to tell some of the things that how this research can lead to technology development. I am sure that I am going to give a very good information to younger colleagues who are sitting in the room, and lot more information possibly on the system. So I will start with a very brief introduction for particularly students, that when we look for biological responses to stress, we see that all living system, they actually get the stress, and through some mechanisms, many of them are known and unknown, the signal reaches to the genome, and genome functions in response to these stresses. You see differential function of the genome. Some of the genes, they are down regulated, some of the genes are up regulated, and eventually the entire process, it actually protects the organism from these stresses or allowed to get adopted. So this has been the general kind of easiest way of schematic representation, that how biological system actually responds to stresses. Now when it goes to just a minute, I think my slides are not moving.
Sir, can you make a PDF of your presentation?
I can do that. Maybe it will take some time now. That it should do, but Zoom is creating problem for us in BRC. It's a real problem.
In virtual machine, that PowerPoint may not work properly.
I know. Maybe I'll convert it. Just give me a few minutes, please. It's got completely distorted presentation.
From original PowerPoint, you convert to PDF and then copy PDF file to virtual machine.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that only.
Dr. Mishra.
I'm just coming back.
Hello.
Yes, sir. He has some problem in sharing the screen.
Hello,
He will join.
Dr. Mishra.
Yes, sir.
If you have really a problem, maybe we can shift to another session and you can come back when you are all right. Is it okay?
Well, I'm done in 2 minutes if you give me just.
He is not able to move his slide.
Sir, we can share on behalf of you if we get the file, if you don't mind.
Yeah, you tell me your email ID. I think that's a good idea.
Yes, I'll post it in the chat box. You can take it from
Dr.
there.
Mishra, there is another suggestion. Perhaps you would like to say your points without slides.
No,
Students are getting curious. So I think maybe you can speak extempore without slides.
give me 2 minutes to finish, sir. Just give me. Actually, I have to other computer to do all these. Just 2 minutes.
Dr. Mishra, I think
Yes.
it's better to postpone it, and there will be a discussion session. Perhaps we will give you time, and this session can be now closed.
Can you see my slide now?
And we can start with the next session to save time and to stick to time.
Yeah, we can see.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir. Your slides are visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Right. Can you see my second slide? Let me move on.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It is correct.
Yeah,
Please go ahead.
I think some echoes are coming. I think you can see. Hello.
Yes, sir. Your slides are visible. Second slide is visible now.
Right. So now let's. So I think I'm getting a lot of echo. Dr. Hassan, maybe I can go to the next session now. I'm sorry. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Declare this session closed. And if your slides are working fine, you will join in the next session when Dr. Chamlo is chair.
Okay, Dr. Mishra, that's fine. I think let me send the slides and then you can come.
Just to respect time. So,
Now,
hello, madam. You can invite Shyamlo Majumdar. Madam.
No. Now I request Professor S. Majumdar to chair the session, and I would like to introduce Dr. Pooja Rai Pradhan for the session. Dr. Pooja Rai is a Chief Operating Okay. No, I don't have it. Okay. Professor S. Majumdar is from Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, and I request Sir to please chair the session. And over to Sir, or over to Professor S. Majumdar.
Yeah, thank you very much. Since you are introducing the speaker, why don't you please do that? Then we can invite her to.
Shall I introduce
she's from
you?
the institute. Yeah, please. Yes.
म्यूट किया है क्या माइक्रोफोन को अपना बराबर है? Hello, Professor S. Majumdar. Are we audible to you, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
So the speaker of this session is Dr. Pooja Rai Pradhan. So may I request you to please introduce her to this audience?
Sure, sir. Dr. Pooja Rai Pradhan is a Chief Operating Officer at Excelsior Education Society. She is dedicated academician and demonstrated history of managing change, developing programs, and identifying limitations and availability of compatible resources. She is an academician who strongly feels that education cannot be compartmentalized rigidly between art, science, and humanity. There is so much science has to learn from humanities and arts vice versa. She's a blogger and she writes passionately about the importance of ancient scriptures and their relevance in the contemporary time. She strongly feels modern education in any area needs resilience, underpinning of human values and ethics. She draws relevant learning from the ancient Indian scriptures in her blogs and videos. She believes current educators must take the responsibility of connecting the glory of rich Indian heritage with modern education. To read her blogs and videos, visit www.peopleinspires.com. Great welcome to you, ma'am. Yeah. I'll need it. Yeah, both she wants. I don't know. You have to tell me. You have to use both colors. No. That's fine. Yeah. Good afternoon, curious and anxious audience and impatient audience. But I don't blame your you. I blame your age. So it all comes with time. And heartiest welcome to Dr. K.P. Mishra, who is here in person with us, and also a lot of thanks and best wishes for organizing this event and getting such an august gathering of eminent people who you could hear today. And I'm sure this interaction would take you ahead. Maybe a lot of things went above your head today, but trust me, in hours, in days, in months, it will come back to you and you'll start connecting things. That is how it happened with us when we were so energetic and enthusiastic. Things just bombarded and we didn't understand why. And we didn't like our personal space and time being, taken away by teachers and events. But trust me, later on, you would appreciate that. Because over the years, when you grow higher in life and matured with age, you will start thanking your alma maters, your individual faculties, your parents, the various speakers and academicians you would have met in the course of your time, right? Now, I will not go very academic because I'm not an academic person. I don't believe that. So I'm a very, I still consider that I'm learning, and we all keep learning because we just have maybe not even known the tip of the iceberg. Iceberg ka bhi jo tiniest dot hoga, maybe we are just aware of it. So we already had such a good academic things, and you knew about education technology. You came to know about, I think Dr. Mishra's session couldn't happen on the genome effect and the technology and genetics supposedly. And we also had sessions. The first one, which was more relevant for the faculties, where even the students, where we knew about various projects that's coming up, and you can, utilize them, industrial projects, internships. So I will just ask a very basic question, and I leave for you all to think, because basically I feel the most important thing with us is that we are conscious human beings with emotions and observational learning, which however smart machines come, cannot have that, at least can't imagine today. So on this technology day, when we celebrate so happily the recent advances in technology, the emerging fields of technology, I will pose very basic questions about how and why do we integrate human values, life skills with technology. At this point, you might feel, कि जब इतना अच्छा life चल रहा है, when you have machines to take care of everything on a button, everything is available. You can meet your friends across the 7 seas or on just a click of a mobile. You have machines taking care of your house. You have cameras. You have all new gadgets to take care of your life. Why do we care about human values and life skills? But there's a very big concern about it. Why we should know about it? If you would have heard about the 4, I don't know how many of you know, the students. If you would have heard about the 4 Purusharths that is mentioned in our philosophy, which is the life leading philosophy, the 4th Purusharth of Dharma, Arth, Kam, and Moksha, which is relevant today also. So the earth is the economic prosperity that we want. जो हम पैसा कमाना चाहते हैं, that is earth, right? Economic activities, जिसमें जो आपका भी plan है, after you do your BTech, you want to earn a lot of money, have a nice life, but all these things need a prior or underpinning of dharma. And this is what I'm talking about today, is the human values or ethics in technology, right? Now, why do we talk about this? What is the relevance at this point when the life is going so happily and so at ease with technology? We talk about it because when technology has taken over most of our work and apparently made our life simpler, it has also created a lot of concerns for us.
At the same time, when there are driverless cars, and we are getting energy from sun and able to harness it, and then we have AI doing AI empowered machines doing our surgeries, giving us more precise diagnosis. We also have concern of cybersecurity, cyberbullying. We also have concern about data theft, and we have concerns about data morphing. We also have concerns about bitcoins or the cryptocurrencies being used for cross-border terrorism. So that is the flip side of technology, and that is the reason why we need to talk about human values as an integral part of the technology. Because the more we grow, the flip side, technology has a lot of positive effects. We are able to control climate change. AI is working a lot of, AI is actively doing in the field of climate control, poverty eradication, education, a lot of things, it's everywhere. But at the same time, we also need to understand that the more powerful it is for your good, equally it has powers to do harms for the human generation, right? So that is the reason that we need to talk about human values or life skills in technology. I would not blame when you do not associate the importance, because it's not your age. Even I wouldn't have understood this importance when I was in graduation, or probably in post-graduation also, or maybe when I was doing my MPhil, I wouldn't have understood. It comes with time, when you have a lot of learning, when you have a lot of exposure, and when you understand the flip side of technology. So I always suggest people that, like you have machines, जब आप कोई machine खरीदते हैं, maybe a washing machine or an ironing machine, whatever. So there's a manual that comes with it, user manual. So I think that now it's a time that when technology is being taught to you, a user manual for ethics, a user manual for life skills, for human values needs to come and being taught along with that. Because the moment we have power of a technology, and we do not have the underpinning strong foundation of ethics, it has chances that it will go out of control. And that's what happens, that you have suicide case out of cyberbullying, and why the concept of ethical hacking came, because hacking had been very unethical, right? So the more you move towards technology, the more advancements you make, the more power you feel. You need to have a very strong underpinning of human values. And that is what I think should be one of the very important motto of Technology Day, that how do we integrate human values with technology, right? So I'll give you very few quick one or two examples, and I'll leave you to think about it, and maybe you can get back on those topics to speak with your own teachers in your various lectures, because it has to be taken care even in your various lectures, because this is not something that can be taught separately. So whoever is teaching you whatever technology, they also need to tell you the flip side of it, or the ethical way of dealing it, right? Take an example. I'll give you very simple examples. Take an example of in vitro fertilization. It came long back, 1970s. It came. It was a boon for people who were for the infertile couple, right? But they started deciding about, an egg would be fertilized outside the human body, and it could be transferred to the body of the women, and they can have a child. This was good so far as it served the purpose of giving child to a childless couple. But now we are going to a stage where people are selecting the genetic makeup of the child. They are deciding what color, what intelligence they want. And it won't be a time far away when the entire nation would be involved in this, that they want people of superior intelligence so that they can have competitive edge over the entire world. So think about the flip side of in vitro fertilization, which is a very simple thing. I'm talking about a very simple thing where you see so many boards, across the cities, and has become a very good source of earning money, right? But there's a flip side to it, and we are not talking about it. We are not talking about the ethics of it. And that is how the surrogacy came into picture. Surrogacy was fine till it could offer respite to the infertile couples, but it was not fined when it started being commercialized. And with that commercialization started, the genetic mapping and sequencing and deciding what color, what breed, what characteristic, what
See,
physical
our
characteristics, what
bandwidth doesn't
intelligence I
support
want,
Zoom,
right?
etc.
So
I think
that
we
was
have
absolutely
had
fine.
problem earlier also. Maybe my computer is also not very good. So I should have bought my home. I was thinking, but then finally I stayed back. So what I will do, I have already sent
There's a
some
crosstalk going
opinion.
on.
Yes, yes. Just a second.
This sound disturbing?
It's already muted.
Okay, so I'll continue further. Brown University has come up with a news that AI robots will make a RoboCat to help the elderly couple track down their eyeglasses and medicine doses. Very good that they're coming up for the respite of elderly couple, but can it be replaced by the human touch and feeling that an elderly couple needs? So are we not trying to underestimate the requirement of human beings? So probably the moment I heard about this RoboCats, a thing came in my mind, and probably it would be happening somewhere in the world, because if there could be a super intelligent robot to take care of elderly couple, there could be a super intelligent nanny, robo nanny, to take care of the young children, because working professionals are ambitious, and I don't blame their ambition. The society has to be more secure and inclusive for the kids. It's not that women have to, sacrifice their life or goals. But the way we have nano robots for elderly, we can have super machines which can be nannies to the working couples. And I was just thinking, what if I start buying, and this becomes a trend, and which will very soon. What kind of generation are we aiming at? A generation which has interacted with, at the learning stage, they have interacted with robots, so they do not understand human emotions. They do not have learned behavior, which we learn from the people who are around us, our nannies, our grandmothers, our parents, whoever, right? So definitely, technology is coming to aid us anywhere we want, anywhere, even what we can imagine. But we also need to understand that till what level, till what extent are we ready to get our life assisted by technology? Because if we are getting technology so much in our life, getting it assisted so much unethically, without understanding the flip side or the demerits of it, we also need to be ready at the same time about a generation of human beings who will be brought up on machines and probably bereft of any human emotions and human thinking, logical understanding. I don't know what all we will not have, because we haven't faced the time. So we also need to understand that these things are there. Similarly, when the respirators came, बहुत पुरानी चीज है respirator, right? So when the respirators came, they were a big boon for people who were ailing, and it could save many lives. But at the same time, silence. You need to hear this, because I'm giving you a very simple example. You have to connect to this, right? So when the respirators came, they saved many lives, right? After some time, what happened? Whoever would pay for the respirator, even the concept of brain dead people or not responding, they were kept on respirators and they were kept alive. But if you go by the doctor, they were virtually dead. We were just keeping them up. Now, at the same time, we also have a problem of those people who are actually dead and they will never come back to the real life. But because I can pay for the respirator, the person is being kept alive. And there might be a respirator which is needed for a person who could be, saved, number one. Number two, there was a very big discussion after Dr. Bernard came up with the heart implant concerns, where there were a lot of cases who were kept on respirators who would never come back to life, and they would die the moment respirator was taken away. And doctors suggested that their hearts could be used for the implant of the younger people who could recover. And then they decided that they need to redefine death. So what is death for you? Once you've lost all your senses, you will not come back. You're dead for them. So technology has so much of an impact that it has started deciding the definition of death for us. So you need to understand that we're very happy, mobiles and laptops and media, TV, aeroplanes, we're just moving super jets and well, I don't know what. Life is so beautiful with technology and so depressing without technology nowadays. But at the same time, we need to understand to what level is it affecting us. The generation which is coming up now on all these technological gadgets and online learning is also a generation who needs a lot of tips on mental health. So we also need to understand that is it what Dr. Mishra very rightly pointed out, are we creating lone learners? Because learning is a group activity, and group is always therapeutic for human beings, because human beings were also always known as social beings. We were social animals. Sociology defines us as social animals. So technology is also making us very lonely, because within a house now it's a norm, right? Pehle jokes bante the, abhi norm hai, four people sitting together, everyone on the mobile, and then within the same house, I'm talking to my daughter on WhatsApp. So we have created more and more lone members, and the therapy or the therapeutic effect that the family or the group or the friends used to have, now we have to take them to the mental counselors. So I'm happy to see that you're happy, but you need to connect here. Yeah. So the whole thing is, students, I'm leaving, and we will take this, Dr. Mishra. There's a promise that we make that we'll take up this topic ahead. And today we understand that we are going to do some good sessions for all of you about ethics and technology, which I'm sure Dr. Shelley Oberoi and her team will take care. Because this is something that I just realized in the process of this whole thing which came up, that this is something that students are not aware of. You know about artificial intelligence, you know about IoT, you know about data analytics, data science, but are you aware about the dark side of it? How aware you are? Aapne apne aap ko kitna tayar kiya? How prepared you are to deal with it, right? So this is some of the questions that I'm leaving you with, and maybe the last one I can help you with. I've got some very simple examples, considering that you do not want to understand a lot of technology because you already have, So fair enough. These are some of the things I'll cut down, because I know we are overshooted the time and we still have a session left. So the last thing that I want to tell you is, please try to reflect upon the human values, the life skills that needs to be underpinned for a technology. The more we grow on technology, the more need for underpinning it with a solid value foundation. Because tomorrow it might be the fact that we are not prepared. And I can tell you, in a country like India, we are not prepared for the entire generation that's going to come, which would be the AI exposed generation. जो अभी आगे आपके आने वाले generation है, they are totally exposed to technology, and we are not prepared for them because they do not understand values, they do not understand ethics, and they're not able to integrate that. And I'm sure even with your age, I don't expect that much, but you need to think about it, especially because you all are science students. And technology is not only about making your technologies work, it's also about making it more responsible, making it more accessible for everyone. And technology is also supposed to be giving equality of opportunity to everyone. If the technology becomes restrictive, if the technology is not egalitarian, then the technology fails. So the whole purpose of technology is also to make your life accessible for everyone. So technology egalitarian, usko karna, equal karna bahut zaruri hai. We should not create a society of haves and have-nots because of this technology, because that would be much, much difficult to deal with, right? So thanks a lot. Giving you some food for thought. Think about it. We might come up with an extended session on it where you will be speaking. We won't speak. But that is all for today about integrating human values into technology and disease research. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pooja Rai Pradhan. Interesting, thought-provoking discussions.
I had to cut it short because
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, you are audible.
AK Sajbo, na? Majumdar, sir.
Yeah, I can hear you.
See, Professor Mittal is here. Long time.
I can hear you.
Please unmute. Please unmute Sheena, madam.
Yes.
Is there any questions?
Professor S. Majumdar, am I audible to you?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear
आपका
you.
माइक देने को बोला है
Professor Majumdar, I
माइक
can
देने को बोला है
Yes, but I
can
think
hear you.
stage has some
I can
problem.
hear you.
sir we
Stage.
cannot hear you hello
Hello, can you hear me? I can
yes
hear
sir
you.
yes sir yes sir you're audible
Yes. So now, is there a question or comment on the excellent talk given by Dr. Pooja?
Hello.
no sir I don't think so any questions he's asking students do you have any questions for the session no they said no
So the audience present in the online, I can see Professor Mittal is there, and many other people
ऑनलाइन
who
में कुछ
can.
है क्या क्वेश्चंस देखिए जरा
Indeed covered a very interesting and important topic, and I'm sure that it must have created a lot of thought among the audience. There are no more questions or discussions. We can end the session here, because are we going to go for the talk by Professor Mishra, Hari Mishra?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
there. I would like to do that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
that will be
yes.
a very nice thing. Yeah. So
I have
think
sent my slides. It can be shown from that side.
नहीं मिले हैं
okay,
Yes, sir. We have received your slides. Just a
I
second.
think that is a good idea, because I am looking forward to this talk.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Give me a second.
okay ना sir sir
Can you hear me? I'm audible. Hello.
Maybe in the stage, yes, we can hear you.
Am I audible?
Yes. Somebody in this stage can actually, flash the slides of Dr. Mishra.
Yes, sir. I'm sharing the slides. Give me a second.
Okay.
I hope slides are visible.
Yeah. I can start now.
Yeah, Dr. Mishra, please start your talk.
Right. Can we go to next slide? This I had already spoke. Yeah. So now, just now in last slide, I mentioned about biological response to in general stresses. But this slide is basically to explain that how in eukaryotic system, how eukaryotic cells or higher organism, they respond to DNA damage. So we know that the radiation actually damages the DNA, and then the damage ends are actually being sensed by certain proteins, and these proteins, they pass on this signal to ATM sensor kinases, and these ATM ATR kinases, in response to DNA damage of by single strand double strand break, they actually phosphorylates a large number of proteins, and these proteins, they in turn regulate the cell cycle, which is shown on the right hand side of the panel, through their checkpoint regulations. And that is how the eukaryotic cells or higher organism, they actually respond to DNA damage and controls their cell cycle, and take care of the DNA repair before the cells divide. Can we have to next slide? Now this is happening in eukaryotic system. What happens in bacteria, particularly I have mentioned it as a eukaryote, the DNA damage response is actually regulated by a very well established paradigm that is known, where there is a protein called LEXA, and LEXA keeps most of the genes under its control. So it keeps majority of the genes which are involved in actually DNA repair and cell cycle regulation, they are repressed condition. But in response to DNA damage, the lexay, which is the repressor, it gets cleaved off, and then de-repression of all the genes occurs. Now, at least in E. coli, more than 500 genes have been shown to be under the control of lexay repressor. And among these genes which are actually gets induced and expressed in response to DNA damage, that is after inactivation of the lexay, majority of them, they involve in the repair process. So the damaged DNA is being repaired, but simultaneously the cells are not allowed to divide. So there are some proteins, one such example is Sule, that goes and knock down the FTSZ, which is the primary protein for bacterial cell division, and it poses the cell arrest. So this process is actually, the cell arrest continues till the damaged DNA is repaired, and then the cells again resume the cell division. And this has been the only mechanism of DNA damage response and cell cycle regulation in bacterial system. So let's move to next slide. Now, this is something which I thought of introducing to the audience, that what are the different mechanisms of DNA damage response and cell cycle regulation in eukaryotic system and let's say in bacterial system. Now we have been working in BRC on Deinococcus radiodurans. It's a champions organism for us for last several years. And this bacterium has many unique features when you compare to other bacterial system. Can we go to next slide? Next slide, please. Go to next slide, please. Right. So one of the feature of this bacterium is actually before that, the Deinococcus radiodurans is actually characterized for its extraordinary radioresistance. And when you compare the gamma radiation response, let us say with the mammalian system, where you find that D10 is 4 to 6 gray, means that 90% of the cells can be killed by giving the gamma radiation exposure of 4 to 6 gray of gamma radiation. But when you see the bacteria belonging to Deinococcus family, where radiodurans is one of the member, the D10 value is actually 10 to 15 kilogray. So look from the gray to kilogray dose. It means when the bacterium is exposed to 10 kilogray gamma radiation, the 90% cells die, but 10% still remains viable. At up to the dose of 6,500 gray of gamma radiation, this bacterium remains viable, and none of these cells, they actually gets killed. And that is what has surprised to the scientific community around the world. And molecular geneticists, they started working to understand the molecular basis of radiation resistance or radio resistance in this bacterium. Can we go to next slide? So for a long time, what has been thought that possibly this gamma radiation is not being able to damage the DNA or biomolecules of this bacterium. But of late, it was found out that by giving the dose of 6.5 kilogray gamma radiation, I'm giving a particular value here for you to understand. What happened that at this dose of gamma radiation, as you have seen in previous slide, this bacterium doesn't get killed. Almost 100% cells, they remain viable. But then if you look the DNA, which was analyzed on pulse field gel electrophoresis, the million basis genome gets fragmented to 25 kbs, etc. And it produced nearly 200 double strand breaks and 3000 single strand breaks, that's estimated. And this tolerance to such a higher level of DNA double strand breaks is actually amazing for any biological system, because if you see in E. coli, even the other bacteria that cannot tolerate even 4 double strand breaks, but this bacterium, it actually tolerates nearly 200 double strand breaks and 3000 single strand breaks. The most amazing thing which was observed was if you leave this bacterium in the same medium in little less than 8 hours time, it reassembles its shattered genome to the original pattern. And it was found that by doing the pulse field, the other fingerprinting mechanism, that it has not encountered any genomic rearrangement. So with this kind of thing, the lab has been associated for last several years to address two fundamental questions of gamma radiation effect. Can we go next slide? Next slide, please. Now, as we know that gamma radiation actually it produces the harmful effects by one direct effect of ionizing radiation, and then the other one is through production of the reactive oxygen species, and both together actually damage biomolecules. A bacterium that shows such a high level of gamma radiation resistance to gamma radiation, we thought of investigating the oxidative stress tolerance. I'm going to actually present the story that we started with a very small questions that how this bacterium actually cope up with the oxidative stress tolerance, and then it has beautifully led to the a science that I would love to actually tell. So we started working on both aspects, that the DSV repair, that is how the assembly of the shattered genome takes place in such a faster rate, and the second, that how this bacterium cope up with the oxidative stress effect of the gamma radiation. Can we go to next slide? The work that I am going to present here is actually the major work has been done by Dr. Nivedita Khairnar. My other colleague, Dr. Y.S. Raj Purohit, who is very much here now, he has grown as a senior scientist. Two PhD students, one Dr. Kruti Mehta, the other is more recently by Dr. Ganesh Maurya, who has become the faculty in BHU after finishing the PhD from here. Can we go to next one? So what we did. So what immediately we observed it, Dr. Mittal is sitting. I think we have discussed this thing, and probably he will appreciate that. First time what we identified, there is a biochemical being produced in this bacterium, and that is name is a pyrroloquinoline quinone. And this particular biochemical or a molecule that is being synthesized in bacterial system only through a pathway that involves 5-6 genes. So we found that genome of this bacterium is actually, it contains the pathway for synthesis of pyrroloquinoline quinone, and by looking the structure of this molecule, we felt that this could be a compound being made in this bacterium that may have some role to oxidative stress tolerance. This was a very small question was asked at that point of time, and in couple of years after starting this project, we actually provided the evidence for the first time that PQQ can act as an antioxidant and pro-oxidant in a concentration dependent manner. When we produced this particular compound in E. coli, we could actually show that now this E. coli can tolerate very high level of oxidative stress produced by photodynamic effect of rose Bengal. So this has been the story in E. coli, but our interest was actually to see that what this compound is doing in Deinococcus radiodurans. Can we go to next slide? Go to next slide, please. I think it's moving a bit slow now.
Can we intervene you if you like?
Right now, yeah, I can see. So what we did in this case, that we actually identified that this PQQE gene actually responsible for the synthesis of PQQ in this bacterium, and we deleted PQQE so that PQQ should not be made in Deinococcus radiodurans, and finally we found the cells that actually lacks the PQQ. Then we went for looking rest of the phenotype. Can we go next slide? So here, if you see in this case, what happened that the moment the cells, the wild type cells that shows the gamma radiation resistance, as I have shown in my very beginning of this slide, but when you make the cells that does not produce the PQQ, that is PQQE mutant, the cells become sensitive to gamma radiation. Now, since gamma radiation, as we know that it can have the effect through oxidative stress tolerance, also oxidative stress effect of the gamma radiation or ionizing radiation. So we initially we had thought that this much loss of the gamma radiation resistance of this bacterium, it could be through oxidative stress loss of this organism, oxidative stress tolerance loss of this organism. But what we did the pulse field gel electrophoresis actually to monitor the reassembling of the shattered genome, and it was our surprise where we found that the mutant which does not make the PQQ, it actually has lost the DSB assembling. So now here PQQ was thought of to be a protector of DNA damage, but what it turns out to be that no, the cells which do not have the PQQ being made, they become even deficient in DSB repair. And this has been actually a turning point of our entire research at this point of time. We thought that let us try to investigate if PQQ has some role beyond its antioxidant nature, which was being spoken actively in the lab. Can we go next slide? What was known about PQQ much before we discovered its antioxidant property, that PQQ was already the one component that PQQ is being made only in bacteria, no other system can make it. And PQQ was known as a coenzyme of gluconate dehydrogenase in many bacteria, particularly those which are involved in mineral phosphate solubilization. And what it does, that GDH, glucose dehydrogenase, in presence of PQQ, it does the direct oxidation from glucose to gluconic acid. And this gluconic acid in those bacteria, they actually leach out of the cells, and then they help in solubilization of the insoluble phosphate. So this has been the story known 30 years before we discovered the PQQ role in the oxidative stress tolerance. And then what was happened by through structure, crystal structure, etc., it was shown that PQQ can interact with the GDH and methanol dehydrogenase through beta propeller motifs. So we went to ask the question. Can we move to next slide? We actually asked the question that are there proteins in Deinococcus radiodurans which will have this kind of motif where PQQ can interact. So by using this consensus sequences, we searched the proteome of this bacterium. Can we move up? Next slide, please. So what we found that when we use this consensus sequence and search for the protein in the proteome of Deinococcus radiodurans, whether they have such kind of motif where PQQ can interact, we found that there are 5 ORFs. You can see the green color is actually showing the site where the PQQ has the potential site or protective signature or site where it could have interacted. So we found 5 different ORFs in Deinococcus radiodurans, or 5 proteins which we call it proteins which can actually interact to the this pyrroloquinoline quinone. So what we did next, can we move next? So what we did that we used the molecular genetics approach. I think it's more of the basic research that I'm discussing. Please enjoy the science. So what we did, we actually did the molecular genetics where we deleted all these 5 genes from the proteome, from the genome of Deinococcus radiodurans, and we isolated all the 5 mutants independently, and we checked for the gamma radiation response. As you can see here, that rest other 3 mutants, they did not show much effect on the radiation response of this bacterium. But one such protein, DR2518, that the removal of this particular protein from this bacterium actually made these cells hypersensitive to gamma radiation. And D10, which was used 12 kilogray for this particular experiment and this system, became 3 kilogray. So this kind of result, which was very interesting for us to believe that this PQQ is somewhere, I mean, a protein that contains PQQ interacting motif is possibly involved in gamma radiation resistance of this bacterium. Can we move next one? Again, we had the same question that whether this effect of PQQ is being seen through its oxidative stress, which was well established story in the lab, or it has some role to play on the DSB repair. So we did pulse field electrophoresis and we compared the wild type assembling pattern with the assembling pattern of the mutant, which does not have DR2518 basically. I'm sorry, it's supposed to be 18. And then what we found that the most efficient DSB reassembling ability of this bacterium was lost when the DR2518 was removed from the genome of this bacterium. And that is where we concluded that this particular protein, it has some role to play in DSB repair. And this was the very first observation in any bacterial system where a protein, this kind of protein was actually reported, which contains PQQ interacting motifs. So we looked at that, we checked that what DR2518 is actually this protein structurally. Can we move to next one? It's getting slowed speed. So in this case, when we check the DR2518, what we found that N terminal of this protein has got a very well defined or evolved eukaryotic type serine threonine protein kinase domain, and C terminal certainly has 7 independent beta propeller motifs, which eventually folds back in this kind of structure. And with whole lot of experiments for of course couple of years, we actually characterized this DR2518 as a radiation responsive serine threonine tyrosine type quinoprotein kinase, and we named this protein as a RQKA. And after this, we started investigating the detailed mechanism of RQK for working in the radiation response of this bacterium. Can we go to next slide? Move to next one. So what we eventually discovered by doing some in silico analysis, that there are proteins in this bacterium, they can be the potential substrate for this particular kinase for phosphorylation. Can we move next one? Go to next slide, please. Yeah. So what we did, we had all, we made several of these proteins. They were already the part of the other research in the laboratory. We also made the RQKA, and then we did in vitro study to actually find out if this kinase RQK can phosphorylate these substrates or not. And as you can see in this case, that we found that 3 proteins which are getting heavily phosphorylated by RQK under in vitro condition, and one of them happens to be RECA, PPRA, and FTSZ. Now my next couple of slides are actually going to concentrate around the effect of phosphorylation of all these 3 proteins and their role in the radioresistance. Can we move to next slide? Go to next slide. Let's cut the story, I think. Hello? Right.
Yes,
so in this case, so one of the protein, as you have seen in the previous slide, that was the PPRA. The PPRA is one protein that is present exclusively in bacteria belonging to Dinococci family. This protein is not found in any other system. And what was demonstrated much before we discovered phosphorylation, etc., of this particular protein, that when this protein was incubated with T4 DNA ligase, I'm sure you all know that ligases are proteins that involve in the ligation reaction. So this was actually shown by Professor Narumi in Japan Atomic Energy, who actually identified this protein first time, that if you incubate PPRA with the T4 DNA ligase under in vitro condition, the activity of ligase activity was stimulated several fold, which was also observed even in E. coli ligase. So what he provided, he published this work in one of the best microbiology journal at that point of time. He said that the PPRA can actually stimulate the DNA interjoining activity of DNA ligase. So we took the help of this information and we asked the question, can we move to next slide? We asked the question whether phosphorylation of PPRA, how does it affect the DNA interjoining activity of T4 DNA ligase? We did experiment, and I'm sure those who are doing the recombinant DNA work and ligation, they will understand that if you take the linear plasmid and put into the ligation, you get 2 kind of product. The one is the self-ligation product, that plasmid gets circularized if it is single enzyme cut, and the other product which you get it is a linear, intermolecular ligation product, which actually forms the multimers of the plasmid. So we measured this particular characteristics in presence of phosphorylated and unphosphorylated form of the PPRA, and what you see that we actually quantified, we found that phosphorylated form of the PPRA can actually enhance the intermolecular ligation product, which is actually a typical characteristics of a ligation reaction involved in the assembly of the DSBs. And this actually, so this shows that the phosphorylated form of PPRA can actually change the characteristics of DNA in the joining ability of ligases from the self-ligation product, which is actually counterproductive reaction to the intermolecular self-ligation. And this was, so this actually gave us confidence and actually evidence that phosphorylation of PPRA can affect its function under in vitro condition. Can we move to the next one now? Next slide, please. Then what we did, we actually had seen that this protein is getting phosphorylated by RQK. We did phosphopeptide mapping by mass spectrometrically, and we found that this PPRA actually has got 3 sites, threonine 144, threonine 72, and then serine 112. Actually, these sites are getting phosphorylated in PPRA by RQK. We generated the site-directed mutants, and eventually we found one mutant that has, all 3 sites were mutagenized, and this particular protein became the phosphonegative when we incubated with the RQK. Now we ask the question that if you do not allow if you do not allow the PPRA to get phosphorylated under in vivo condition, then what kind of impact it will have on the radioresistance of this bacterium? And we had the PPRA mutant, and you can see with respect to wild type, this mutant was actually sensitive to gamma radiation. When we did the episomal expression of PPRA, that is on plasmid through complementation, we could complement the loss of PPRA mutant to near to the wild type. But when we put the mutant of PPRA, when we express in trans, similar to the wild type, it did not complement to the function of the loss of the function of the mutant. This suggested that that phosphorylated form of the PPRA is required for radioresistance of this bacterium. So this was one observation. Then we thought of providing more evidence on the other proteins. Can we go to next slide?
Dr. Mishra, if you could summarize maybe another 5 minutes.
Yeah, I will just try to finish it out. Okay, can you, so this was another Recce work, that is the similar observation which we obtained. Can we move to next one? Right, so this again, I think by having the mapping and site-directed mutagenesis followed by complementation, we further provided the evidence that phosphorylation of Recce, which is another protein and very important protein of DSB repair, is actually has the role to play in radioresistance. Can we skip one slide and go to the next one? Right. So this is something which that actually I had shown you earlier. So what we found here, that the phosphorylation actually it improves the activity of the proteins that involve in DNA repair. And then the question which we ask, that what happens to the cell division protein, because there are cell division proteins also we are getting phosphorylated. Can we move to next slide? Maybe let's go to the conclusion slide, 2 slides more. I think it's the same thing what we did that. I'm in the meeting right now. You can call me a little while, please. So go to the summary slide, please. Before
sir,
that,
it would be
go to next slide. Go one by one. Go one by one. I think let me conclude this component. Next slide.
Yeah.
Next one, please. Right. So this is actually a summary slide. If I want to reach out the all finding, that gamma radiation, which produces both kind of stress, actually has the inducible expression of PQQ as well as RQK, and RQK and PQQ interaction is actually makes this kinase active. It becomes autophosphorylation that becomes hyperactive. Now this kinase actually can phosphorylate large number of proteins in Deinococcus radiodurans, and the phosphorylation of DNA repair proteins actually activates its function, and that is required for the radioresistance of this bacterium. But the cell division protein, the data which I have not shown it, where this protein RQK phosphorylates cell division proteins like FTSZ and FTSA, the activity of these cell division proteins, they are actually attenuated. So in one way, I want to actually conclude by saying that the serine threonine kinase, a kind of a RQK protein, when it phosphorylates DNA repair, on one arms, it actually activates the DNA repair function. On the other hand, it actually attenuates the cell division activity. And this is the typical kind of feature which you see actually. Can we go to next slide? So this model is actually the findings, it mimics to the model of DNA damage response, etc., that we had seen. This slide, if you remember, that under this condition, which has been the only known DNA damage response cell cycle regulation in bacterial system, that DNA repair is enhanced and cell division is arrested. The work that we have been doing, and finally we reached to the model in Deinococcus, that also tells almost similar mechanism, that the phosphorylation of DNA repair proteins by serine threonine kinases actually can lead to the enhancement of the DNA repair on one hand and cell cycle arrest on the other hand. Let's go show one or two slides to. So this is something which is a beautiful findings, and very original finding has come from the work from BRC, where first time we demonstrated that bacteria can have serine threonine kinase kind of DNA damage response and cell cycle DNA damage response cell cycle regulation mechanism. Hello.
I think maybe we can just conclude now.
Okay, so I think I've got just two slides to tell you that where this fundamental research I thought of taking for some technology development. Now I'll take few minutes. I know E. coli has been used as a cell factory for production of recombinant proteins, and that has been going on for last several years. Now what we know that E. coli host, it does not have any serine threonine protein kinases per se. Now we pick up the protein. I'm actually raising a question here. We pick up the protein from plant system, from cancer, from animal, from every system. We are expressing in E. coli, and when we are purifying the protein, we are doing all in vitro studies under for structure biology, biochemical, biophysical, all characterization. The fact is here that a protein that was actually a phosphoprotein in cancer cell is being expressed in E. coli and being purified in the non-phospho form. So my question and apprehension was all the time there, that are we making the protein which is qualitatively similar to what you see in plant system or in cancer system, where proteins are actually phosphorylated form. So we raised the question, can we use this finding of RQK and develop some kind of technology or product that can be actually used by structure biologists and molecular biologists for expressing their phosphoproteins through such bacteria which can phosphorylate, and then they are purifying the real protein actually in native form, what are present into their cancer cells or mammalian system. So what we did, we actually transgenized this RQK into E. coli genome, and we created 3 E. coli strains under 3 different backgrounds. One is normally used for protein-protein interaction, that is BRC2, BRC1, and BRC21 is actually BL21 that is being most popularly used for as a cell factory for production of the protein. And we actually inserted this kinase into E. coli chromosome, and we made E. coli that and then tested whether this E. coli can actually phosphorylate the proteins. Can we move to the next one? Go to next slide, please. Right, so this actually just to show that all 3 stages of E. coli, they are producing the RQK, that is this kinase on the chromosome, which normal E. coli, which does not have the RQK, does not produce any serine threonine protein kinases. Can we move to next one? We also provided the evidence by expressing some of the next slide, please. So this particular shows that if you express large number of proteins from the outside, including mammalian system, transylin, prohibitin, and all kind of important proteins which are known to be phosphoform in the cancer cell in the E. coli. And then we could demonstrate that yes, this particular E. coli which is making RQK from Deinococcus radiodurans could phosphorylate majority of the proteins which are coming from the mammalian system and plants and bacterial system. So we propose, actually we are in the process of making this as a technology which can go to biotechnology industry, ranging from the researchers to the pharmaceutical industries, where people can think of producing their peptides and proteins through rooting this bacterium, and then they will be actually making the protein that will be closer to that. My last slide, can we go to? Yeah, so this is another very interesting thing I wanted to share to Dr. Mishra and Dr. Majumdar. If are there, say we thought of checking that what will happen if this kinase is expressed into the mammalian system, and then we transfected this protein into human cell lines. And it's a very small slide but very impactful observation which we have it. If you see that control versus the RQK expressing cells, the cells have complete transformation in their cellular morphology. And this phenotype, I think a lot more has been done by the colleagues subsequently, that this expression of RQK in mammalian cells, it actually makes the epithelial to mesenchymal transition, that kind of cellular transformation. And now we are and we tested it with some of the markers, and we found that yes, by expression of RQK, you are actually triggering the cellular morphology from normal cells to empty phenotype, which I am sure you all know is actually a very critical stage of the cancers when they go actually in the metastasis. So we have some observations here. I am leaving my presentation at this point of time, that by using such fundamental research and moving to mammalian system, maybe future we'll try to see if some of the proteins can be identified which are involved in EMT transition. Let's go to the next one. I think this slide I have already explained the acknowledgement to my colleagues. And I think with this, I would like to thank you. If there are questions, I would like to address it. This is me. Still, I am struggling to understand the fundamentals of DSB repair in this bacterium. And you know, the science presentation always takes a little longer time than the technology. So I hope that you all appreciate. And then still I have rushed it. Otherwise, it would have been a very good talk for the National Science Day and a little less fitting to the National Technology Day. But I'll be happy to ask the question. I hope I have given information for younger generation to have something known about this bacterium. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra. It's an excellent talk. At least I enjoyed it. I have many questions, but I don't think I should time for that. Maybe from the online audience, is there any query and questions?
Yeah, I will have one.
Yeah, Professor Singh.
Yeah, let Hassan finish and then I'll come back.
Hassan.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to compliment Professor Mishra for an excellent talk. And I was just wondering whether did you identify any attempts to see whether this PQQ or if, by giving externally the PQQ in mammalian system, can it repair the damage caused by refrigeration, or can you also introduce this gene in mammalian system and check whether it can repair such type of damage what you observe in the
Yeah, I think, yeah. So Dr. Hassan, maybe I should have spoken you 1:1. We are on the next door, but nevertheless, that's the gap which we have in science. So the question, look it. So the transfer of RQK from Deinococcus to mammalian cells that was actually done with this purpose can be enhanced the radio resistance of human cell lines. And we had some idea, some plan why we are doing this thing, but you know, in research you don't know what's going to happen. This protein per se did not show much resistance to human cells, but it actually shows the phenomenal phenotype, that is from normal cells to empty phenotype, and that is what more exciting to me right now. And then maybe colleagues will be addressing after I leave the BRC.
Professor Singh.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Majumdar. Dr. Mishra, I don't have a question, but I'll make two comments and one clarification. The comment is that you said that science and technology presentations may take different time. I think you should not be regretting. It was a passionate presentation, excellent. And let me tell you that good technology comes only from good science. So compliments to you, nothing to worry about. Query that I have, actually it's not a question, query. You know, somewhere you talked about the role of PQQ, right? And then you are trying to generalize all that connecting with ROS in general. Now, behavior of PQQ will be different. Can you hear me? There is a lot of disturbance. Can you please?
Unmute kar do na.
Others should actually mute and then.
So we cannot hear the voice.
Yeah, there is a lot of disturbance because a lot of people perhaps are
Voice is not clear.
Am I audible now?
Can you repeat? Yeah, Professor Singh, go ahead.
So
Yes.
I have to repeat the whole thing.
No, we couldn't hear. You can hear.
Can you hear? Oh, Dr. Mittal, good afternoon. Can you hear now?
Yeah, I'm hearing.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we can hear.
Great. So I think what I said that I don't have really a question, just a comment and maybe a little clarification for my benefit. The compliment was that we should not say that science and technology, they are inseparable. I think good technology can come only from good science. So Dr. Mishra, I think compliments, nothing to worry about. You have made a good, you have done a good job. The query is that we talked about PQQ, and then you build up the entire story thinking that reaction of behavior of PQQ with the different kinds of ROS will be same. ROS, for example, I think you somewhere showed superoxide radical. In addition to superoxide radical, you may have hydroxyl radical, you may have singlet oxygen, you may have hydrogen peroxide, many other things. So this generalized picture, do you think that we should try to specify this? Of course, perhaps it may not be in your domain. Maybe some chemist, for example, can do this. Also, this Rose Bengal comparison was a little bit out of my understanding, because Rose Bengal is specifically creates singlet oxygen under photolytic condition. And therefore, generalizing this perhaps would be a little difficult. So, I mean, my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
I hope you got my point.
Maybe, yeah, I can just share with you this PQQ story that has been published in Feb's letter 2004. And here my interest was not to highlight much on the PQQ, rather to reach out, rather to reach out that an antioxidant, and our research was going in the direction we wanted to do all these things now in the broader scale. Suddenly I found an interesting question that yes, cells that doesn't make the PQQ has the defect in DSV repair, and we took this research in that direction. This is what I thought of highlighting it. But then information that PQQ was actually shown that it can react with the hydroxyl radicals and singlet oxygen both. I think that was the work which was done in collaboration with Dr. Indira Priyadarshini and her group.
So now it's clear. Now it's clear. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Right. So this was done, but I had not shown that data. I thought of just taking the story.
Thank you.
Just to provide the evidence that when we do the research, at every moment we get observation and findings, and then maybe a direction can be different rather than what original hypothesis we have it.
You are absolutely right. I think research gives a question, an answer which turns into a question all the time. That's the research. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Maybe Professor K.P. Mishra can make a comment to have you as a offline speaker in TIFR.
I would be happy, sir. I would be happy.
That's a very
Take me here. Take me from here, yeah.
That's why I'm not asking any question, because it will be better to ask in offline.
Yeah,
I
there
would,
is.
Questions. Yeah.
thank you for recognizing.
So, maybe in the offline mode, is there anybody who can hear and take over the session now? Because I think there is a communication problem.
In fact, offline people are not being able to hear.
Yeah.
Dr. Hassan, are you around?
Yeah, Professor K.P. Mishra, could you please just take over the proceedings now?
Oh, Dr. Mishra got now phone.
Yeah, so he should be able to take over now.
Quick, we are unmuting the mic.
Yeah, Professor K.P. Mishra, could you please ask your question and also the conduct the test of this presentation?
I think after.
Let us see what.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Please now take over the session. If there are any offline questions and also your comments.
Yeah, it's time to close the session. I think we have overshot time. So I think panel discussion, we will begin now, and we'd like to be very brief on that point. Dr. Mittal has joined. Let us welcome him. Dr. Mittal.
Yes, sir.
What do you think chemical sciences, how they will be in terms of technology next decade? What do you think, how it will be in future?
Well, all chemical reactions will be done through artificial intelligence. That is the future of the chemical reactions and chemical stories. And Hassan is smiling, I can see. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, I think they will be the new inputs of technology into the chemistry, which are going to give us newer avenues for the chemistry. The answer to that, your question is. But I must also give some comment. I think it has been a wonderful seminar, and I enjoyed, although I could not attend the first seminar because I was attending the main NASI Technology Day from Allahabad. But Dr. Mishra and his group has wonderfully arranged various interesting lectures. Dr. Hassan has managed everything very well. And it was nice to see not only the lectures on technology, but also on the ethics of the technology, and also about the last lecture, Professor Mishra, which I heard was excellent in terms of not only the science, but also the point which he made, that there are certain technologies which you can come out of learning basic sciences. For example, some time back, I had visited a lab in Boston, US Army laboratories, and they were working on cockroaches. And I asked him, what is this cockroaches, a room full of cockroaches research you're doing? US Army. And they said, well, sir, you must have seen in your reactors also, the cockroaches have lived inside the reactors. And you just imagine the amount of
Just
dose.
just 2 minutes.
Which they are taking. And the reason, then it reminds me exactly on what Mishra is saying about that is, if you have done so much detailed work on that, maybe the next chapter will be on cockroaches from your side. It is an extremely interesting thing. How does it happen? What are the proteins inside there which are assisting? What kind of principles are there which are actually stopping the damage, radiation damage, or repairing the radiation damage there? And that can involve tremendous amount of technological business. So nature really has lots of chapters for us to open and read about them. And that is the final aim of the technology and our science, that we should understand nature as much as possible. And today's seminars have really shown a number of cases in which scientists and technologists have been trying to learn from the nature. And of course, while utilizing the technology, we have to take care of the ethics, and that is that none example can be better than what was done in the case of atomic energy. For example, even the people who first made the nuclear bombs later on said that we need not have make it, let us say. But then the question of ethics comes there, and there are many, many complicated problems of that. The government said we have spent so much amount of money, so we must do some experiment to see whether the experiment has succeeded. Now the question can say about whether it was ethical to do that, because Germany and Japan both have already conceded their defeat, but still the nuclear bomb was not only made, because making was at that time very essential because the Germans were also working. But in any case, the science of the nuclear bomb was very easy. And I think all of the science students here know from the class 12 only, this required from nuclear fission. But the technology from the nuclear fission reaction to take and how to hold and how to contain these whole reactions is a great technology, and which every country is holding to their hearts. And nobody will tell you anything about that. And that is where the whole technology initiation of the National Technology Day started from there. India successfully learned the technology of making nuclear fission reactions. And that is the initiation of the whole nuclear technology after the explosion of 1998 on 11th of May. And there again, even though India had made earlier peaceful nuclear explosions in 1974, but it was not technologically very viable system. The whole business was very huge and you could not use it for any purpose as such. So the nuclear technology was involved in the 1998 explosive experiment, where it could be made in a small size, which can be utilized on a missiles or something of that kind. So there is a great gap between technology and science. Science is open. Everybody knows the science, how the nuclear fission takes place. But to take it into a controlled manner, and in such a manner, a wonderful science technology, if you know that if you control it very well, you have a nuclear reactor. If you let it go, it becomes a nuclear bomb. So all the things which we learn from this technological control of the natural processes, I think are worth appreciating, and also knowing simultaneously that ethics of that has to be kept in mind. Thank you very much, Dr. Mishra, for arranging such a wonderful seminar.
Thank you, sir, for your views. Among the speakers, is there any point that you would like to make? Anyone? Out of time now, an audience is getting impatient. So if you have any point, please.
Dr. Mishra.
Yes.
Yeah, see, I am, since this is more close to academic activity where our all efforts are being made to reach out for education and students and colleges, etc. I think, I don't know, I mean, I'm possibly, ignorance is not an excuse. I do not know that how well this chapter is connected with the colleges, in this university or in Mumbai, etc. Because my own experience is there. I'll tell you very just morning session when I was hearing to Dr. Kakotkar and Dr. Mohanty and Dr. Vyas, learning never stops. That is the concept has come, and after listening to them, lot more excitement and ideas comes in mind that what we should be doing in our life. So like that, if these students and colleges, if we people go and then talk to the science, technology and inspire them on regular basis, I think we can make them little more viable and more oriented for doing better and better, because they need to know. I mean, when I came to BRC first time, I knew a lot of things. I had never heard it before that. So such kind of exposure actually it helps it. And I think Dr. Hassan and Professor Singh possibly will highlight it that how well we are engaged, because in Mumbai we have large number of colleges and graduate colleges, and how well we are actually connected with them.
Okay,
That's
thank
what
you.
I think my request will be.
Thank you very much. Professor A.K. Singh, do you have something to say? Professor Singh, are you connected?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, so I think we will shorten the panel discussion. I will now invite Dr. Hassan to propose a vote of thanks for this meeting. Dr. Hassan, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. So, should we ask from the college someone to make comments about the discussion about the topic? Okay, if there are no more discussion, let us first of all, I would like to put on record our sincere appreciation to the college, KC College of Management and Research, KC College of Engineering, Management and Research, for kindly consenting to host this event organized by the National Academy of Sciences India Mumbai chapter. It was really a nice opportunity for us to interact with the college and having this hybrid meeting where a good number of students from the college participated, and we have a good number of lectures by various academicians as well as other dignitaries. First of all, I would like to put on express my sincere gratitude to our resource person, especially Professor Narendra Shah, who has taken over as the member secretary of the Rajiv Gandhi Science and Technology Commission of Government of Maharashtra. Sir, it was really nice of you to spare your valuable time in spite of your busy schedule to come forward and express the technological intervention that has been, the programs with respect to technological intervention that has been taken up by the Rajiv Gandhi Center for Science for Technology Commission. So nice of you for your participation and valuable words. And also I must also compliment the our other speakers like Professor Sahana Murthy from Department of Educational Technology, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, IIT Bombay, for her feedback, for her deliberations about the technological interventions or in learning, in the new age learning procedures, how technology can help in improving the learning or the teaching procedures, and how to assess the learning tools that has become a hallmark in today's time through technology enabled learning procedures. And I would also like to thank Professor Hari Mishra. I think it was an appropriate talk. So really nice of you, the fundamental insight that goes into the technology of any product. I am pretty sure such type of fundamental research will ultimately lead to path-breaking technologies for the future. And this type of research is highly motivating. And as you mentioned, we have chosen the colleges or the other institute as the forum to discuss such type of developments that we carry out in the premier R&D centers, which will become the essence, the seed for developing the new technologies. Thank you, Dr. Mishra, for sparing your valuable time, as well as the high impact research that you have carried out over a period of time, and its impact in near future for understanding or developing therapeutic approaches for radiation-induced DNA damage and other processes. And I would also like to thank Professor Rai for for giving her insight about the ethics in technology implementation in various, especially in the academic sector. As you rightly pointed out, it is really a food for thought, or for our to introspect ourselves how much the technology can complement the teaching procedure, as well as enhance the society with innovative technologies through an ethical means. Thank you, Dr. Pooja Rai Pradhan, for sparing your valuable time and joining us in the discussion on this important event organized by NASI. I must also thank our Executive Council members and other NASI dignitaries who have joined in this forum, especially Mittal sir, who has always been an inspiration for us, the past president of the National Academy of Sciences India, Allahabad. Sir, thank you very much for sharing your valuable thoughts and joining us. In spite of your busy schedule, you could listen to the NASI headquarter program as well as part of our program. Thank you, sir, for your insight into technological intervention in educational sector and its future. And I must also compliment Professor A.K. Singh for his keen interest in initiating this type of events during various events organized by NASI. Thank you, sir, for your participation. And I must say that Professor K.P. Mishra, sir, ex-head of radiation biology and RBHSD division in BRC, he is the key person in organizing this program, along with the KC College of Engineering, Management and Research. Mishra has taken a lot of effort in devising the program as well as implementing in consultation with the college. So I am very thankful to Mishra sir. Thank you, sir, for doing this job. And at the end, I would like to say that the management, the principal of the college, Vilas Ninnavare sir and Professor Sheena, Professor Pratap, they were all has taken keen interest and initiative in interacting with the NASI team for formulating the program and doing this program in their premises. We are really delighted to have the KC College management for hosting this event and having a wonderful session today with all important lectures as well as the panel discussion. Thank you, everyone. If I miss anyone in acknowledging, it is please excuse me for that, and extend my thanks to all audience, those who have joined online as well as offline, for their key interest and participation. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. Back to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Harshan. Thank you, Dr. Harshan. Thank you.
Welcome. Yeah, let us conclude.
Hello. Thank you, Hasan sir, for your great words of appreciation towards my management and my entire team who is responsible to organize this event. And I anticipate such kind of events to be happen with National Academy of Science in future. Thank you once again for giving us an opportunity to host this event. Now I declare this program is over. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye. Take care.
The recording has stopped.